Fallout may be the most famous video game series in existence. It's up there with Halo, Metal Gear, Barrio Mothers. Fallout 1 came out in 1997, but most people really only came and played it after playing Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas, and so they're in for a bit of a shock. Oh man, I've always really wanted to play this game. But before we get to that, this is the first in 6 reviews, Jesus, that will cover the entire Fallout series. If you don't like it, then here's a door.
Fallout 1 is an absolute nightmare.
It began as a series all the way back in 1997, but only really became astronomically popular when Fallout 3 was released in 2008. Now, Fallout 3 was of course made by a totally different group of people than the first 2 games, but it really does amaze me how much the visual design and in part I believe the success that Fallout 3 has slurped away from Fallout 1. Both the game's trailers are of course the exact same sequence. And that's obviously fine. Bethesda paid for this entire series, so I'm not throwing shade. But I am a little bit concerned that once it becomes time for Bethesda to make a sequel to Fallout 3, if they aren't able to come up with any new or groundbreaking ideas, it may seem like Fallout as a series has nowhere else left to go and they're just grinding it down to an empty husk of its former self. So Fallout 1, just so we're clear, is a game about leaving your lovely vault and going out into the wasteland to find resources that help keep your vault healthy and safe. It came out in 1997, so it's pretty damn old. I played this game for the first time a few years ago, and honestly I actually quite like the visuals. They remind me of Commandos 2, a game I really enjoyed as a kid.
That was great.
Thank you. Fallout 1's visuals, even at the time, fell into that sweet spot between passable and okay. Enormous praise. The visuals intentionally, I think it's intentional, do force you to use your imagination, which I always find is really effective for sucking people into a game. But there's a lot more to it than that. Yes, things may be a little low res, but everything in this game is incredibly stylized and detailed. The power armor, for example, is covered in pipes, shafts, valves. There's even a wheel on your back when you're wearing it. What's best about all the details in this game is that none of it's ever really explained why it's there in the first place. Bethesda, no, don't do this to us! The design of the super mutants and ghouls in this game is, and I cannot stress this enough, nothing short of perfection. Everything about these characters you meet tells you something unique about them. The Lieutenant, for example, has undergone severe cybernetic enhancements, which backs up his obvious high rank. And Set here is so irradiated it looks like he is literally being held together by his armor. Almost everything in this game has unique design, right down to the Pip-Boy menu system with the vacuum tube lights, but I'm sure that idea won't be stolen by anyone. This design, combined with the game's incredible soundtrack, instills this genuine fear that the world has come to an end and no amount of positivity or hope will save it. I don't tend to talk about soundtracks much because I don't usually have a lot to say between these 2 categories, but I do love adding orchestral scores to space simulator games. No, come on, we gotta focus. The soundtrack in this game is a badass. Does that make sense?
Badass.
Badass. A badass.
Right, the soundtrack in this game is...
It is the definition of simple yet effective. My favorite parts by far are when you're exploring barren locations in the literal middle of nowhere. Literal middle of nowhere. The echoing wind, the sinister whistling, the unrecognizable metallic sounds in the distance. It makes you feel alone, but also like anything could be around the next corner, watching, waiting.
Oh, hi, Mark. Oh, hey, Johnny, what's up?
Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. And you know, speaking of games about exploring exciting wastelands, this video is sponsored by Skullcraft X. Set in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, Stalker 2... Starcraft X is the biggest MMO FPS set in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which means you can immerse yourself in the zone with friends. There's any number of choices and roles that you can take on. You can hunt for artifacts that give you mysterious powers, hunt for other players who are also hunting for artifacts, you greedy become an explorer, which is my favorite thing to do, and find loads of interesting locations within this varied map. You can become a trader, a scientist, a bandit, or just join a faction and wage war. And don't you worry, I can hear what you're saying. You're saying, Matt, I'm like you. I don't have any friends. Wait, do not fret. The game features a non-linear storyline with a cinematic main storyline and side quests. So if you want a unique game that combines exploration with fast-paced first-person shooting, well, I found it. So let's do it! Use my link in the description box below or pinned comment. And when you do, make sure to use my promo code UPIsNotJump24 to receive bonus items that will make your exploration of the zone even more horrifying. Fun. Anyway, back to... So if you were coughing up blood at the visuals... Wait, this is non-toxic, right? Oh, I don't feel very well. I'm not gonna die, am I? Then Fallout 1's interface itself might actually kill you. To interact with the world, you have this menu system at the bottom. It isn't overly complex example. It isn't overly complex example, it's just it isn't complex exactly, but it's on screen from the very beginning of the game. So the very first thing that happens is a rat suddenly attacks you, and what do? The problem is, pretty much every separate menu in the entire game can be opened from this little interface here. In more modern games like Fallout 3, for example, you tend to have everything you could want to know available available from one menu. This makes interacting with the game a lot less daunting. Fallout 1 also, of course, has no tutorial, so most people spend a good 30 minutes of their opening playtime trying to work out how to take out this rat. Step over, Legate Lanius, Spider Mastermind, and Mr. McGregor. There's a new boss in town, and she's here to exclusively take up half your morning. Every time someone complains about not knowing how the classic games work, it's usually because they never bothered to look up any manual whatsoever. Oh really, Sound T? Take a seat then and we'll just open her up, shall we? You want me to take a short holiday to read up on how to play Fallout 1, a game that looks like Doom 2 was run over by a car? Look, I don't want to be a about this, but obviously I do. To show how complicated things can get, let's show how armor alone affects combat when we have a battle with this rat. Rat valve. When your deadly enemy attacks you, there are three major things relating to your armor that decide what happens. This affects your opponent's hit number and is subtracted from their chance to hit. This is then combined with any of your leftover action points to determine your enemy's hit number. It's dodge, call it dodge. If you fail to dodge, a devastating blow will be made by your unvanquishable enemy. To determine how much damage you actually take, damage threshold needs to come into play. This is a set number that reduces the base amount of damage taken. And what decides damage threshold? Well, the 121-page manual doesn't actually say noise coffee, but it's basically just a specific number that changes depending on the armor you're wearing. Here's the official equation. Your damage resistance decides the final amount of... Your damage resistance decides the final amount of damage taken by reducing it by a percentage value of the current damage taken value. There's the equation. It is also set by the armor you're wearing. And how does this transpire after... Okay. This is also set by the armor you're wearing. And how do things transpire after this brutal attack? Cave Rat hits you for 0. The thing is though, this system being quite tricky doesn't really matter. It's present in loads of other games like Fallout New Vegas, and you just don't really need to think about it. Though it is worth remembering that this system was almost completely absent from Baby's first Fallout. Fallout for Babies. Fallout 3 for Babies. This issue is from Screen 1, there's this and so many other systems. The thing is though, in Fallout 1 there's so many other systems and menus to get your head around. Even after memorizing the manual, It is incredibly overwhelming in your first combat scenario to see your action class spinning around like the f***ing Wheel of Fortune. Now, I'm not saying that this game needs a standard tutorial like most games these days. If your health falls to 0, you die. Oh my god. But perhaps if Fallout 1 started you off in a building with doors to unlock, people to sneak past, or traps to uncover, it would be a much easier way to get you used to the simpler parts of the game's interface, rather than just throwing you right into combat, which is by far the game's most complicated system.
Human weapons cannot harm me.
Well, I beg to f***ing differ. You see, Fallout 1 came out way before there was the great purge of old video game tropes, where for better or worse, things like tutorials, single menu screens, maps, and quest markers became standard procedure. This was all the way back when the nonsense logic of point-and-click adventure games still reigned supreme. Let's take Day of the Tentacle, for example. At one point, this game presents you with a guarded door, and to get by with absolutely no hint, clue, or explanation, you need to go outside, put some white out on a random fence, wait for a cat to crawl through it so it will get a white line on its back, grab the cat, take it inside, throw it at some prisoners so they'll get scared because they think it's a skunk, they'll escape from their cells, the guard will leave to chase them, and you can finally go through the secret guarded door. 4 out of 5, 87%, one of the greatest point-and-click adventure games ever made. The puzzles are well done. The puzzles in Fallout 1 are never this cryptic, but the interface manages to be a problem throughout the entire game. Here are a quick selection of problems I kept having. Many of the character models look exactly the same, so trying to work out who is on your side in a battle is almost impossible. That was my dog I just killed. When trading, you can only move 999 caps at a time, so when trying to buy this combat armor, for example, I have to move my caps across 21 separate times. Dozens of bookshelves are glitched, so when trying to inspect them, the game thinks you're picking them up and says that they're too heavy. When standing in front of a door, it disappears, so my character keeps trying to lockpick the f***ing walls behind them. You can't walk through any other characters, so if they block a doorway, you just have to wait until they move on their own. Your items are shown as a vertical list, so you're constantly needing to scroll through them, trying to find the things you need. When using explosives, you have to arm them within these menus, but once armed, rather than being dropped from your inventory, they move to the bottom of your item select list, so to drop them properly, you have to scroll down to the very bottom of your inventory, click on them, and then select drop. And I think we all saw that coming, didn't we? In Fallout 1, your character has to travel through the post-apocalyptic wasteland to find a water chip so that your vault doesn't die of thirst. While you're out, you discover super mutants that want to take over what is left of the world, and you have to stop them. But what's so good about Fallout's story is how subtly it escalates. Early on, you go to a nearby trading town while looking for a water chip, and while talking to the town's leader, Killian, you witness his murder. Well, unless we step in and then it's an attempted murder. Oh my god, I've absolutely destroyed him. Killian, seeing that you can handle yourself, asks you to take out the corrupt kingpin of this town, Gizmo. But he looks so trustworthy. Upon completing this task, oh my god, this game is so violent. Killian then offers you some better equipment, thus teaching you that completing these additional quests are probably going to be quite important in helping you save your vault. In Fallout 1, your main goal is always your primary focus, but the secondary quests you stumble upon are usually cleverly intertwined. It's not like all these new-fangled games where every human being on Earth calls you out of the blue in the first 5 minutes. My cat is stuck up a tree. I hear you can double jump now. The thing is though, between you and me, I didn't like this game when I first played it. Shh. This is largely because working out what you need to do and actually doing it both can be incredibly challenging. To add to this, the game's combat is also incredibly difficult. Decide you want to roleplay as a pacifist and put all your points into unarmed and sneak, and it's effectively game over, boys.
We shall see, won't we?
Okay, he's knocked me down, but we've still got this. Seems about right. But once I completed Fallout for the first time, this is where my opinion about it really started to change. When you return to the world and you're familiar with how it plays is when I think it really starts to shine. You see, in the beginning you decide in insane detail all the skills and traits you want your character to have, and what you pick here can completely change the entire game. Characters will talk to you differently based on your attributes, and basically every situation has an alternate way of solving it if your character has the right specific set of skills. Famously, the entire game has also been completely rewritten so that you can play through it with a character that's too stupid to even talk.
Get your butt in here and sit down.
Bleh.
Get out of here, you idiot.
Okay, maybe that wasn't the best example. Fallout 1 is like this enormous sandbox where you can try dozens of different strategies and they all affect the game in different ways. You're also within a time limit of sorts, and how quickly you complete the game drastically affects its ending. So every decision, every skill point, every journey you pick is crucial. And it creates quite a tense experience. You see, for a post-apocalyptic world, this game is extremely densely populated. There are dozens of characters, decisions, mountains of lore, and numerous locations to visit. The writing is nothing short of constantly excellent, with even the combat text being fleshed out with interesting phrases. You were hit for 82 points. The scars and bruises will make for good party talk. You are dead. Or my absolute favorite, Harry was critically hit for no damage, hurting the giant. See, now I think this game's just f***ing with me. And because the number of characters you meet in this game that actually have voices are kept to a minimum, with only 21 in the entire game, coincidentally the exact number of times you need to move 999 caps along to buy combat up, this gives each location with a voice actor an incredible amount of depth and personality.
The High Elder decreed no training of new recruits until the threat of invasion passes.
Overall then, I just think Fallout 1 on its first playthrough is too challenging and clunky to really appreciate. That's fine. It's a little bit like Dark Souls, but instead of only getting good after the first 5 hours, Fallout 1 only really gets good after you've completed the entire game. Now there's a marketing slogan for you. Thank you everyone for watching. In the next episode, I'll be reviewing Fallout 2, the 60-hour-long version of Fallout 1. And now for our sponsor.
Fallout 2 is an absolute nightmare.
A green screen checklist. 1. Don't wear any green. Fallout 2. I don't like this game. Fallout 2 is that game, you know? That everyone raves about being the best experience of their life. Like if Prometheus was the Greek god of gaming, handing it down to us lowly mortals to enrich our lives. Well, I guess this is slightly better than Pac-Man. Okay, I accept this game may have been mankind's greatest achievement back in 1998, when all they had to play with was old radiator parts and subtle background lead poisoning. Which, by the way, is actually still prevalent to this day. But that's a story for another rushed science video. Fallout 2 gives me heartburn. Actually, coffee's giving me heartburn. Am I okay? Do I need a doctor? Just don't rely on my doctor skill in this game to help me out, am I right? But we'll get to that. I say we'll get to that, I never actually wrote a follow-up in the script. Fallout 2, on the surface, looks and plays exactly like Fallout 1, so expect the same sort of warm greeting. Oh yeah, this seems completely fair. As I said, I didn't really like Fallout 1 the first time I played through it. I found it only really got good when I re-explored the game as different characters and found how varied your experience could be. Sorry, I keep thinking about this video thumbnail I found earlier of all these different YouTubers reacting to the enemy propeller head in Resident Evil Village. It's just led me to question why I do anything in life. Booking a studio, writing scripts, editing, when I could just do this and be paid literal millions. Actually, let's recreate that thumbnail even more authentically. It isn't really possible for me to play through all of Fallout 2 like I did with Fallout 1 and discover all its hidden gems. You need the Chaos Emerald. This game is literally 60 hours, 80 if you're an idiot. Fallout 2 isn't bad. No one here is saying that. Well, actually, I'm saying that. No, the characters and the voice acting are basically flawless, and the quests and puzzles have an incredible amount of depth to them and are really good. I don't remember what I wrote in the script. But this game is literally 80% text boxes, and yeah, that's great if you're William Butler or a human brain. It's 2021, people. My attention span has been completely destroyed by COVID alerts and Twitter alerts. Obviously, we know which one is more damaging to society, though. It's Twitter. Make video about how much you hate Twitter. Back then, people only owned 2 or 3 games. Anything would do. And yes, the economy was booming, so we weren't yet fervently insisting to let the old and sickly die in the streets to keep it afloat like some 20th century up version of the Wicker Man. Killing me won't bring back your goddamn Bitcoin. Really brings a tear to the eye. Ah, the bees, the bees. But back then, just finding a store that even sold video games was a Herculean feat in of itself. Just loading a webpage on my PC took out our entire neighborhood's phone line for 2 weeks. You had to choose, talk to your nan this month or attempt to buy Crazy Taxi online.
Some girls, they want the moon.
I've spent a lot of time playing Fallout 2 trying to work out if this game just isn't for me or if it's a really boring game. And I think the answer might be both. Uh-oh. Fallout 2 starts you off in Arroyo, a spiritual village that exists in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. You live here, but also your village is slowly dying.
The signs are everywhere. Sick children.
You are picked as the Chosen One and are being sent out into the wasteland to find a Vault-Tec brand Gek in the hopes that it can save your village. A Gek, for those who don't know, is basically an advanced terraforming device. Oh, one of those, thanks for clearing that up. The game starts with you being sent on a trial to prove that you can survive the wasteland, but this also doubles as the game's tutorial. It also lets you get used to the game's gorgeous interface. Here we are taught how to use explosives, find and disarm traps, and even sneak. Well, at least this one's safe. Oh, for God's sake! We even learn that if we say the right things in conversation, we can talk ourselves out of dangerous fights. Although I clicked the wrong button here and was murdered 5 times in a row during the tutorial. I really like this opening sequence though. I especially like that as we explore our village, we find that our character is very unlike all of our brethren. Everyone here sees the ordinary pre-war company Vault-Tec as some kind of divine entity. Yet our character, like us the player, seems to know that this is all total nonsense. It's a very clever way to connect ourselves to our player character early on. There are 2 animated characters here, each more hideous than the last, but they give a huge amount of personality and context to our village, which is important as it's our job to save them. We leave and our only goal is to find Vic, a trader who might know where a vault is that contains a Gek. We quickly arrive at a nearby town, and for me, this is where things dive bomb quite substantially. The first thing we find is this notice board, which gives us the details of every quest in the area. We find that there are Brahmin that need help, Whiskey Bob has a still that needs fixing at Ma Buckner's place, a bathhouse is run by Jenny and Big Nose Sal, a shop dealing in lizard pelts called the Golden Gecko Tavern is owned by Sarjag, Slim needs help dealing with rats in Trapper Town, Vic deals in Vault-Tec objects on the east side of town, and Arden Buckner needs help finding a trapper called Smile. See, this covers everything I despise about a lot of video games. You just rock up in town and you're completely bombarded with quests, context, and random locations. It's so unimmersive. This is not the way any story would ever be told. "You're a wizard, Harry," said Hagrid. "I'm a wizard." "Yes, it's all true," said Hagrid again. Now, Diagon Alley is spread into 17 different quadrants with 92 different traders. The first alphabetically on the list is Amadeus Close, run by the late great Athena Og. And pretty much every single location in the game does this. See, here's how Fallout 2 works as a game. First, you enter a new location and speak to every single person, asking every single possible question and statement. You then inspect and loot every single building, person, and object you can find in that location. And only now you can complete every single quest and puzzle that you've collected on your journey. Every location, though, has literally dozens of new people to talk to at length, so very quickly the game becomes this dialogue box screen. Disagree? I'll take you on. I spent literally 2 hours talking to all 172,000 people in the town Reading, only to find out I was too lower level to complete any of the quests I collected. And so I left, only to stumble upon New Reno, which is the biggest location in the entire game. New Reno has 31 unique characters to talk to, each possessing a small screenplay's worth of dialogue. Sometimes, though, even the non-text-based quests make me want to throw my computer in the bin. Take this guy who asks me to guard his Brahmin from some wild dogs. Here they come. Here they come. When am I gonna get to play? Who's gonna take their turn after? Wait, are the cows taking their turns before me? Here's your fleshed out primary goal with character-driven motive. But also, can you help me deal with these rats? I had a lot of technical issues in fights too. Probably because I'm trying to run a 22-year-old game on Windows 10, like running Pong on the Sierra Lawrence supercomputer. She can't take it, Captain, it's too much! My game eventually just started freezing every time I entered a fight and would only unfreeze once the fight was over. Okay.
You have died.
Fabulous. Speaking of, the death screens in this game do not f about.
Arroyo attempts to send out others to search for the Gek, but they die quickly, and the village soon follows.
You crawl into a nearby cave for shelter, but are eaten alive by starving children.
Your quest to find the Garden of Eden and return it to your village has failed.
The lives of all your family will very likely be ruined by climate change.
Not even the carrion eaters are interested in your radiated corpse.
You stepped on a piece of Lego.
Fallout 1 has loads of huge locations with lots of verbal exposition. But I find it a lot more approachable because these areas are regularly mixed in with other sections that focus primarily on action or exploration. Fallout 2, yes, has lots of interesting ruins and scientific bases to explore. But outside of these, Fallout 2 just throws literally hundreds of people at you in a constant barrage. And each of them have enough dialogue to fill War and Peace the world over, and honestly, I just get really bored of it. And they also bought a very big tin of tiger food, in case the tiger should come to tea again. But he never did. Oh, that's very depressing. I will admit, there are a lot of people out there that enjoy this gameplay style. No! But I'm not one of them. Again, I'm not saying that Fallout 2 is bad.
Run.
Disco Elysium, for example, is without a doubt one of the best written video games I've ever played. But it's paced exactly like Fallout 2, and I think that's why I didn't really enjoy it either. However, Fallout 2 is an improvement over Fallout 1 in a lot of ways. Michelle, what do you think?
Please don't ever shave me.
Many of the interface problems I spoke about in my Fallout 1 review have been fixed. You can finally push people that block doorways out of the way. I, of course, didn't realize this until the end of my 80-hour playthrough, though. So what I would do is spend minutes at a time reloading, waiting for people to move out of my way until I finally had to kick them out of the way of doorways way. Move! But I'm sure if I had just read the manual, I could have learnt this earlier. The quests in this game are also much easier to complete because they've been redesigned a little bit in what I imagine was quite a revolutionary idea. For example, let's say a quest has 4 things you need to do to complete it. So if you only manage to gather the Flagon style and ingest the Wompa Bompa Bompa Bomb, but if you can't work out what else you need to do, you can just hand the quest in with these things done, but receive fewer rewards. But if you can work out that you also need to strangle the Wanamingo and unintentionally brew the flaccid potion of hardening, you can then hand in the quest with all 4 of these things completed and receive maximum rewards. It means the game retains its challenge for those who seek it, but also makes it easier if you just want to move on. I need to stop doing it, right. It's a mechanic that many large games like these continue to use because it works so well. There are also numerous self-contained puzzles that are some of the best I've ever played. The hacking of computers is a great example of this. Different computers will give you a list of pretty authentic functions, and you need to learn what they do and then use these functions to work out what data they hold. You see, it's not a game of pipe dream or f***ing hangman. Like here, I'm trying to fix this computer, so it makes a lot of sense to maybe try and run a general maintenance procedure. Searching. Iron Mountain, offline. NORAD, offline. Searching. Atomic Power Plant 5. Navarro Refinery. Control Station. Enclave. Enclave. Enclave.
Enclave here. Why isn't your video feed working?
Is anyone there? My mic's not working. Is your camera on? I can see all of you. Did you see me? Whose screen is this? Something's missing. A crucial organization is either lost to time or conceivably in hiding. I don't know who it represents. I don't know who it contains. I don't know what it is. but there are traces and shadows of it everywhere. So you know how I said the game drops you into side quests so quickly that you don't really get to develop any motivation to do them? Well, there's an organization in Fallout 2 called the Enclave. You may have heard of them. And your motivation to find and investigate them is developed flawlessly. As the game progresses, if you keep an eye out, you can find their remains, witness their iron fist, or just stumble upon their watchful eyes. They grow more and more mysterious as the game goes on, and you only ever really catch glimpses of them. When you eventually track them down, the payoff is appropriate to the build-up too. I think it helps that they're all given some of the best voice acting I've ever heard in a video game.
A civilian? How in the hell did a civilian get on this base? I'll have someone's ass for dinner!
Who is it? What? I should kick your f***ing ass. Who is this?
Meeting the Enclave happens in the final 5 or 6 hours of the game, and it's a really great ending given how well they've been developed throughout the course of the game. Does it make it worth what I've been through to get here? No. I think the size here is what hurts this game a little. This game was made in a year, which is insane given the quality of the writing and how big it is. But remember when I said Fallout 1 had 21 talking heads? Fallout 2 only has 13, with 5 of those being the Enclave at the end, and 2 of them being from your village at the beginning. This means during a good 40-hour stint through the wasteland in Fallout 2, you'll only meet 6 unique talking characters. You see, the thing is, I always thought the visuals and the voice acting from these talking heads gave a great amount of context to the game, especially given that the graphics are a little shite. And without them, we just have even more blanket walls of plain text to read. So there we have it. This game just isn't my cup of tea. Games with lots of text are fine. The Outer Wilds, for example, is mostly text-driven, but it still tickles my pickle, if you know what I mean. And I'd stare at Mr. House's mustache while he recited all of Atlas Shrugged until he shrugged the whole damn thing off. But this isn't the entire f***ing game. Overall then, Fallout 2 for me starts and ends brilliantly. Its random encounter system is legendary. Do you wish to encounter some homeless people butchering some civilians? What? And it has more endings than Blade Runner. But whenever I play it, I'm always finding myself either bored or frustrated. And don't worry, I know what's coming. So how does an arrogant, illiterate son of a bitch, uneducated asshole, looks like David Bowie before he kicked his heroin addiction? Why do people keep saying that about me? So how does an arrogant, illiterate son of a bitch...
Fallout 3 is an absolute nightmare.
Fallout 1 and 2 were released only on PC, back when knowing how to run a game on a computer was essentially a specialist skill. So although these games were popular in the PC gamer circles, their cultural spread was somewhat limited. It was only when Fallout 3 was released that the Fallout series became a household name. After this, everyone had heard of it. Even the objectively hilarious Conan O'Brien pretended to like it for a few more billion views.
And there's a jet engine coming out his ass? Look at how muscular my ass is.
Both the Fallout games before it were made by totally different developers, and this third game followed that trend. And so I'm of course talking about the objectively amazing Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel. Yeah, this is the real Fallout 3. Look, here's the timeline. Third. I asked for the game, but Emma got me the book. I don't know why. Fallout Tactics is a lot like the original 2 games, but with a slightly fresh coat of paint. It follows a squad of the Brotherhood of Steel that was separated from the main group and is now stranded in the wasteland. Gameplay-wise, it's exclusively a tactical-based shooter. This means there isn't really any dialogue choices in this game. Instead of the speech skill, we have piloting. There is of course still dialogue, it's just we don't have as much control over the story as we usually would in these games. And some of the dialogue we do have is very 90s.
What's my boy doing with the Barbie?
I mean, dated views aside, you don't even seem to have a f***ing dog. The story that does take place is actually quite an interesting examination of the Brotherhood of Steel's role within the Fallout series. You see, at the beginning of... Wait. Oh, for God's sake! What? Where am I? What's going on? Who did this? Wait. What's that over there?
Hello, human. It is I, a mysterious stranger.
Sid, is that you?
No.
Sid, you're the only talking cat I know. I know it's you. You haven't even mastered your voice.
Oh, hello, human. It is I, a mysterious stranger. Read this.
Ah. Well, I do love money. When Fallout 3 first came out, I thought it was amazing. Sure, it's gained some notoriety now as somehow the very worst video game ever made, but it came out 13 years ago. You gotta cut it some slack. It's older than the cat that is currently holding me hostage. Nowadays, this game is a little tricky to get running on Windows 10, so that's the first thing we're gonna do. Getting Fallout 3 to work properly through Steam is genuinely an absolute nightmare. Bethesda, making a game that doesn't work properly? Windows 10 seems to be the main reason this game won't run, but the specific issues people have seem to vary wildly. For me, issue 1 in my cornucopia of errors was that the game simply wouldn't start. And after some digging, I found that this was because Fallout 3 requires you to have Games for Windows Live. What's that, I hear you ask? Well, Games for Windows Live, or was an online gaming service used by Games for Windows. Was. If you're trying to play Fallout 3 through Steam, it simply won't run without this now non-existent piece of software. This is like a cookbook being distributed with its signature dish being roast Diplodocus. So after a significant number of tries, I found this fix, which lets you download the Games for Windows Live file that Fallout 3 is looking for. It gives you the file. Why doesn't Bethesda just give us this file? The thing is, this is widely reported on Steam, and it's completely ruining Fallout 3's reputation. I just can't believe Bethesda is ignoring this problem, and thus allowing their flagship brand to bomb quite so sick. Oh wait, that's right. Even Windows seems aware of this problem, and warns me every time I try to open the game that it probably isn't going to work. Are you sure you want to do this, man? I just care about you. Oh, hi. Me again. Just here to quickly say that this problem was fixed last month. 7 years Fallout 3 hasn't worked on Steam, and it was fixed 1 week after I finished my commentary. Did they do this on purpose? I think they're onto me. This isn't anything new, by the way. If I open up Skyrim VR without first turning on my VR controllers, the game simply won't work and I have to reboot all of Steam. And right now, Fallout 4 is so poorly optimized, playing it is like watching someone smear 2 playthroughs of the game together. Anywho, this fix meant that I could now play long enough to see the opening of the game, which is yourself being born.
Are you a boy or a girl?
See, this is what happens when you let Liam Neeson deliver your baby.
I'm your daddy, little guy. I'm your daddy.
Daddy. You decide how your character looks, leading to the uncomfortable arousal of your own mother.
Oh, very strapping.
And it turns out to be so overpowering she immediately dies.
James.
It's hardly any surprise though. Bethesda have always been really weird about killing family members we barely met.
Stranger.
You're wheeled away while Liam Neeson provides life support and the game crashes to desktop. Oh good. A soul-sucking hour of troubleshooting later and I found this guide that suggested a few different fixes. The one that was causing my issue though is that I shouldn't have been running the game in full screen mode. Well, isn't this much more immersive? So it fixed the crashing and I was finally able to watch myself grow up in Vault 101. Notably, you get to experience your 10th birthday party and I must admit it's all very immersive. Oh hi! You may think I'm crying about the game, but no, I'm locked up in a subterranean vault, remember? Also, I just found this saw. Bollocks. So after another little search, I found that Fallout 3 can be prone to freezing whenever you're inside any building. Look, I'm not going to question it, it's fine. Open the INI files, change this to this, add this, and the problem's fixed. The good news is that that's actually it. The game, for me at least, now only crashed every few hours. I would complain that that's unacceptable or something, but I'm a little busy. As I said, the first few hours of this game are dedicated to you growing up in an underground vault, safe from the nuclear wasteland. And I love it. F*** you. You grow up with your dad, voiced by Liam Neeson, and since he's the main driving force of the story, it actually makes a lot of sense that we spend a decent chunk of time with him. Sure, he's so two-dimensional, I'm worried that any moment he might collapse under the weight of his own hair, but what can you do?
Take care, sweetie. Now get out of here, and good luck.
Bye, Dad. One day your father escapes from the vault, and as a result, the overseer, Mr. Nazi McNaz's son, issues your death warrant, because I don't know. It's time for combat to start. Fortunately, your friend Amata finds you and gives you a gun to protect yourself.
Even with that pistol, I don't think you'll win a fight against the whole security force.
Oh, Amata, you innocent thing. I warned you all not to take me on. So we, peacefully escape. Walk out into the wasteland and catch our first glimpse of the real world. And from this point on, the entire game is open to you. You can go literally anywhere on the map. And my complex thoughts about this can be summed up by plagiarizing Bo Burnham. Welcome to the wasteland. Have a look around. Any living things with brains to blow up can be found. We've got miles of train tunnels, some better, most worse. If empty rooms don't interest you, you definitely wouldn't be the first. Welcome to the wasteland! I'm gonna stop there because of copyright issues. Now before you all murder me, hear me out. The first place I went to was Megaton, which, you know what, is a great location too, okay? Bam, I like it here. It looks just like the sort of place that would crop up in a post-apocalyptic world filled with garbage. Now I will admit, finding your way around here is a bit of a challenge, but otherwise it gives us some of the game's most memorable characters and set pieces. We eventually meet Moira, who's the main quest giver in this area, and she sends us off to collect some landmines. We don't have any other pressing things to do, so we of course accept. And basically she tells us to travel from here to here. So off we go on our first journey. Now on the surface, this expedition we go on is fabulous. The visual style and soundtrack in this game work together to create a delightful atmosphere. In this scene, I'm pouring a bottle of chewable toothpaste capsules into my mouth. They tasted terrible. Just like Skyrim, this game perfectly captures the wonder and thrill of exploration, and that's not an easy thing to achieve. But this game is so open and so incredibly large. Just look at all these locations you can visit. Look at them! Is it realistically possible that all these places are worth visiting? No. Sorry, the short answer is no. The long answer is no. In the walk to get these landmines, for example, I stumbled across and explored in their entirety Springvale School, Scrapyard, Bethesda Ruins, and the MDPL Power Station. And I tell you now, none of these locations have a single character you can talk to or quest you can receive. Yes, there's a dog, but he can hardly hold a conversation. I mean, he is a really good boy, though. Okay, Springvale School is a slight exception, as it has one computer terminal, but it contains nothing more than a few lines of disappointing dialogue that quickly lead you to a dead end, and that's it. These areas I named are some of the closest to where you start in the game, and yet there's almost nothing here. On a related note, I would really like to meet the programming team so mature that they were able to insert the ruins of their own offices into a video game and not fill it with notes and computer logs passive-aggressively shaming their fellow colleagues. When I was in my office job, I was genuinely told I couldn't bring a fan into work because it might upset the other employees. And so if I was developing a game, I would have hidden a skeleton under a table, named it Jump Is Not Up, and left him with a single note that reads, "Died of heat stroke after someone let him steamed to death in his company-enforced tie and blazer. Thanks, Marjorie." In Fallout 2, practically every grave you find has a message like this from the developers. Here lies T.D. Hamilton, a stank hoe that should have been dead a long time ago. Sounds like whoever wrote that wasn't allowed any air conditioning either. Am I right? I'm surely going mad. The point I'm trying to make here is at least 50% of all the locations in this game have practically nothing in them. Usually it's just enemies to kill, loot to find, and skill points to collect. And because loot really is the primary reward for exploration, before I'd even seen a fifth of this game, I had in my inventory 13 mini nuclear warheads, which are this game's equivalent of opening up the console command bar and typing kill all. Look at them go. What have I done? Most of the time you're only exploring so that you can kill enemies, which means you can loot more ammo for the singular purpose of killing more enemies. It means Fallout 3 quickly becomes this perfect Mobius strip of bullshit. And speaking of an inescapable loop of purgatory, the level design in this game is awful. It's fitting that this game is filled with empty locations because the buildings too are packed with empty rooms. Why does Bethesda Ruins need to have so many empty bathrooms? What are you trying to tell us? The interiors of buildings are far too open plan as well. This single hallway in Springvale School branches off into 11 different hallways and rooms, so it's impossible to keep track of where you've been. And this would be fine, but the map system doesn't account for this at all. Most locations in this game have 2 or more floors, yet the maps themselves are always compressed into a bird's eye view of a single 2D image. This wall, it could be anywhere. First floor, second floor, the void between dimensions where the living and dead coexist. However, when this game came out, I think its hugely open-ended exploration actually worked incredibly well. Now this is because the more you traveled, the more unique places you saw and unique enemies you discovered to interact with. There are ghouls, feral ghouls, glowing ghouls, slavers, super mutants, centaurs, Brahmin, mole rats, deathclaws, giant ants, rad scorpions, raiders, aliens, sentry bots, Mr. Handies, robo brains, fucking chaff! You never knew what the game was going to awkwardly segue to next. The drawback was all the Fallout 2 fans, you know, all 7 of them, who played Fallout 3 when it came out, knew that none of these ideas were particularly original. Every one of those creatures I just named are from the previous games. There's no denying that Bethesda has adapted these ideas into the third dimension incredibly well. All these creatures look amazing, but there's no depth to any of them. You just break their legs and enjoy their slow descent into the barrel of your gun. Hello, Darkness, my old friend. Take the Robo-Brains, for example. In Fallout 2, you travel through an entire research facility, uncovering all the terrible experiments being done there, and it all culminates in a puzzle where you perform brain surgery, eventually merging man and machine in a horrible abomination of science and nature. Commands. Probably shouldn't have done this. This event alone has discovery, intrigue, context, challenge, a reveal. And how are they introduced in Fallout 3? Is that a robot with a human brain? Stand back. I'm going to make first contact. America! There's basically no context given to most of the enemies in this game, and given how focused it is on combat, it's a huge misstep as you have no reason to dislike any of these creatures. Like, who the f*** are the Talon Company?
I hear that you could have been useful. Ah, well, time to die.
Can't we talk this out?
No, I don't think so.
Well, alright then.
That interaction there is the absolute perfect microcosm for almost all the enemies you meet in this game.
You want to buy slaves, and I want to sell them.
Okay, thanks for clearing that one up. The Talon Company is literally everywhere, and the only context I could find on them was this woman, Riley.
Those f***s went into a settlement a year or two ago and killed everyone. Women, children, everyone. That's the sort of crap Talon Company does.
Well, that's a unique trait, except for the Raiders, Slavers, Super Mutants, Enclave. But don't worry, the Talon Company is different. They wear leather armor, which is perfect for repairing mine. In a game so much better, I'm surprised it hasn't spawned its own f***ing religion. You learn that there's a military group called the NCR who in one skirmish killed numerous innocent women and children. This all occurred at a raider settlement called Bitter Springs, but as you look into it, you find that this event is shrouded with misinformation. Even people who were at the battle give entirely different accounts of what happened. Some say the NCR's long fight with the raiders caused them to snap, others say they misinterpreted military intel. You quickly realize it's not going to be easy to know who to trust, let alone side with. Bitter Springs acts not only to shed moral ambiguity onto basically everyone you meet in this game, it encompasses the overarching theme of New Vegas and Fallout as a whole, which is in one way or another war taints all that it touches, even those who seem to be trying to end the violence. All you can do in this game is analyze the conflicting perspectives of those involved and make your own mind up on which flawed ideology to support. Oh god, it's just so delectable. So, Fallout 3, right? Bitter Springs alone demonstrates how Fallout 3 has no real overarching goal or tangible themes. War never changes. This has no real bearing here, it's just a juicy line written by a different development team. Who in Fallout 3 encompasses this statement? Him? Sure, there's a lot of miniguns and everyone's dirty all the time, but the pure chaos and extreme open-ended nature of Fallout 3 doesn't allow any faction within it to feel like it has any meaningful goal. Oh god, look at me. I started talking about Fallout New Vegas and began comparing it to another game, like comparing the Sistine Chapel to that time Sid peed on the rug.
Cause it reminds you the gravity of your situation, human. Uh-oh.
Now you might think after all that I don't really like Fallout 3, but actually I think it's really good. I probably should have started with this part. Sure, I have quite a few complaints, but between Fallout 3's avalanche of empty locations and forgettable factions, it has some of the best side quests I've ever played in a video game. There's a town filled with genetically modified fire-breathing ants with a mad scientist.
Those monsters, they're gonna get me.
An area overrun by deathclaws, a society of cannibals now turned vampires, a town menaced by an insane superhero and villain, a talking tree that quite understandably requests not to be set on fire. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. Why do I always do this?
My favourite location in possibly the whole game is the Dunwich building. You see, on its surface, this building is just an empty location with a bunch of ghouls to kill. It seems no different to the other 100 empty buildings this game has. But quickly you see there are several audio logs scattered around that captures someone's final hours here. You also witness a flashback, there's a door that swings open on its own. Even the lighting in this area is different from the rest of the game to fit the tone they're going for. It really creates an incredibly compelling atmosphere.
It's warm against the stone. I'll just rest a while.
But best of all that was needed to achieve this was a few simple ideas and 3 or 4 minutes of voice acting.
And that's the beauty of it. You can spruce up any dingy basement with some color correction and a few spooky set pieces. I couldn't be bothered to add anymore.
This location shows you how much better Fallout 3, and kind of Bethesda games as a whole, could be with a little bit of redirection. You see, Bethesda has it. You know, it. They clearly had the creativity to make Fallout 3 truly incredible. But I think due to some very poor fundamental choices, they missed the mark. And these are fundamental issues. Contrary to what you might hear, this game can't be fixed by mods that, I don't know, touch up the mannequins.
You leave her out of this.
If they had just focused on putting a couple dozen less of these humongous, sprawling, empty buildings and elaborated a little bit more on the good ideas they already had, the game would be worlds better. If you comb through this game, I believe it already has enough great content for it to be a near masterpiece. I just can't f***ing find any of it half the time because it's hidden between all the derelict metro tunnels, drive-in theaters, abandoned towns, sewers, caves, boats, power stations, radio stations, relay stations, train stations. The combat in this game is also really good. Yeah, I said it. Sure, the guns are impossible to aim. I mean, look at this. Look at it. One bullet went here and another one over there. It's all well and good, but this is the best assault rifle in the entire game, and I have a gun skill of 100%. And don't worry, I know. Oh, actually, that's how machine guns work. I should know, I have 24 of them. Look, as someone with an acceptable concentration of lead in their bloodstream, I'm no expert on firearms. But either way, this makes the rapid-fire weapons in this game completely useless at medium to long range, which really means they have no use at all, because at close range, you might as well do this. I can't show you any of this. Oh my god, it's really violent. The thing is though, this doesn't really matter because there are so many other weapons in this game and they're all so incredibly varied and fun to use. Without even nearly mentioning all of them, there are pistols, silence pistols, sniper rifles, shotguns, dart guns, machine guns, submachine guns.
Okay, yeah, I can see that's a lot.
Plasma rifles, lasers, laser rifles, alien blasters, missile launchers, nuclear warhead launchers, miniguns, flamethrowers, a hypnotizer, 10 different types of grenades and mines.
That's all of them, right?
Axes, swords, blades, knives, chainsaws, bats, clubs, shovels, a sword that's on fire, a rifle that can pin body parts to walls, a giant metal fist, a giant claw.
Now, I have always wanted a giant claw.
Too late, human.
I've really got to get out of here soon.
Most of these weapons interact with enemies completely differently. So you can have fun for hours on end just messing around with them. Why must the empty face hole of a Mirelurk haunt my dreams forever? People apparently dick on the rocket launcher, but honestly they're nothing more than degenerate scum. To elaborate, the rocket launcher is a gun that can be loaded with pretty much any object you can find out in the wasteland. So normally finding this bag of yeast would obviously be a pretty boring event. But now, don't thank me, it's the yeast I can do. This varied selection of weapons, combined with the fabulous VAT system, means that although exploration itself can get pretty sparse at times, the combat usually stops it from ever getting too boring. Of course the combat in this series is great, it has to be. How else would Fallout Best Vegas be the pinnacle of all creation if it wasn't? Fallout 3's story certainly is a mixed bag, one that contains half the Holy Grail and the other half James Corden's autobiography. In this story, you need to find your missing father. Then once you do that, you need to help him de-irradiate all the water in the wasteland. And that's the gist. To do this, we need to explore a few different locations, and I'd say the first half of the overall story is pretty good. For example, when you do eventually find your dad, he's hooked into a virtual reality simulation controlled by a mad scientist whose only goal is to torture its inhabitants to gain some kind of existential satisfaction. His name is Stanislaus Brown, yet he spends all his time disguised as a little girl.
Certainly not what I had anticipated.
It's great! To be fair, there's not a lot to interact with once you join this reality, but what makes this experience fun is Braun himself and his motivations. He's been given some really great depth beyond just being a madman. For example, it seems that this simulation was once actually a ski resort, and you can find one of his diary logs from that time. Yesterday, Dithers slipped on the chalet's icy stairs. She went airborne and managed to impale herself on the wrought iron fence. It was spectacular and completely and utterly random.
I respect all cultures equally highly.
Is there anything more sublime than bold crimson on fresh fallen snow? He talks all the time about being sick of creating specific torturous events for the people unknowingly trapped here. He longs for a more organic or creative suffering for them. It's clever. I like it. I'm a normal person. But then the story asks you to explore other places like Rivet City, and honestly, I'd rather just eat rivets themselves. I'll take my award to go. Rivet City is a grey boat with doors, or as I like to describe it, Door City is a grey boat with rivets. Another zinger. There isn't really anything here of consequence beyond this fucking laboratory, but over 40 people seem to live here, none of which have any more depth than the pool of grease on a cheap oven pizza.
Alright, Matt, maybe you need to dial it back a little bit, you know? We're gonna upset some people here.
90% of the quests here just ask you to find character X and regale them with inane fact Y. But the layout of this boat is completely ridiculous. Not only is every part of this place fucking identical in every way, but there are dozens of hallways, and in total they consist of 33 separate doors. It takes less than 10 seconds to walk the entire length of this boat. Why are there so many doors? If someone asks you to find someone else, as they inevitably will, because that's the only type of quest this fucking boat offers, you'll have to walk across every single corridor on a floor, checking every single door you come across, hoping you'll strike it lucky and have the name of the person you're looking for eventually appear in front of you. But no, you'll inevitably be on the wrong floor, so you have to navigate through 2 more doors just to get to the next floor so that you can enter the same long, empty corridor to check the names of another dozen people you haven't even met yet, only to find the door, enter, and see they're not even home at the moment, so instead their room is actually filled with, I don't know, aliens. That'd be more interesting, wouldn't it? Also, of these 33 doors, 15 of them have loading screens associated with them. And if you're playing on the Xbox 360, these take 9 seconds to get through. This means if you were to go through every single door in this tiny location just once, it would add up to over 7 minutes of loading time. But it won't just be once, will it? Because not only is this place a maze of nonsensical navigation, you need to come through here at least twice just to finish the story. Oh goody, I can't wait to enter the marketplace. I see how it is. Geographically, the marketplace is right behind this wall, but there's no direct way to get to it, is there? So you have to go outside and go back in again. This means it takes over 20 seconds just to go to one... Look, no, it's fine, I'm over it. Clearly, I'm over it. And it's a shame, because wrapped up in this awful place is a side quest called The Replicated Man, and it's genuinely one of the many highlights of this game. This quest is so good, in fact, Bethesda took it in its entirety, stretched it out so thin I'm surprised they didn't slip into a lower dimension, and repackaged it as another $60 sequel. But we'll cover that in the next decade.
Overall then, this game has some ups and downs, but generally I think it's pretty good. I stand by my man. However, the last 5 hours of this game, divine.
The final act of this game is so utterly terrible. So inexcusably awful. It actually dips into being pretty good. It's like the uncanny valley or something. You just can't look away as you feel your retinas burning their way through your skull. Basically, just as you're about to finally fix all the water in the wasteland, the main antagonists of this game, the Enclave, turn up and kill your dad. Liam Neeson, dying in a work of popular culture. Bethesda, you did it again. Part 5, who the f*** are the Enclave? In Fallout 2, the main antagonists are the Enclave, just like in Fallout 3. And they are subtly introduced throughout the entire game by means of hidden cutscenes and hushed conversations. All in all, they were pretty hard to miss, but most of the time you still felt like you were chasing shadows. In Fallout 3, the Enclave are introduced to you the very second you start the game by means of a radio broadcast they themselves are putting out. So from the word go, you can listen to their evil leader talk about how he's evil and stuff.
I've been thinking quite a bit lately about something we can all relate to. I am referring, of course, to our great national pastime, baseball.
Naturally, I turned this radio station off and never listened to it again. I admire Bethesda's balls throwing the main antagonist our way within the first few seconds, but we don't see or hear from them again for another 20 hours or so, and barely anyone in the game even talks about them. When the Enclave turned up and killed my dad 13 years ago during my first playthrough, I genuinely had no idea who these people were. Oh no, not my dad, we had such a connection. So what are you guys, like the talent company or something? And I think someone at Bethesda was aware of this, because when the Enclave do suddenly appear out of thin air, the sewers are conveniently conveniently packed full of radios on full blast, all playing the Enclave radio station. Remember, it's those guys from 20 hours ago at the beginning of the game. We have no idea what we're doing. From here, though, the wheels don't just come off. The car f***ing detonates. You are captured by Colonel Autumn, who died earlier alongside your dad. Now, given the rest of the plot in this game, I genuinely thought Autumn being alive here is just a plot hole. But I've since learnt before he dies, he does seem to inject himself with his own wrist. Clever girl. Which must be how he survives. So Autumn captures you and then later on revives you.
So, you're awake.
Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Autumn revives you in what seems to be the Enclave base. Well, it is the Enclave base, and asks for the code to start Project Purity. We tell him we don't know, and thus begins a battle of wits, the likes of which the world has never seen before or since.
You lie.
He f***s off, and the president, who's in charge of the entire Enclave, asks you to come and meet him. You leave your cell and immediately encounter the horrifying amalgamation of every single one of Bethesda's voice actors.
You're supposed to be in that holding cell. You're not going anywhere.
If I had a sister, I'd sell her in a second.
What are you talking about?
It's yours if you bring my claw back.
Please, get away from me. It's amazing, this guy voiced half of every Bethesda game. Anyway, sorry. I worked my way towards the president, murdering everyone in the base, and no one even seemed to notice. I genuinely started to feel a little bit bad towards the end. Eventually, I made it to the leader of the Enclave, the sentient supercomputer, the President of the United States, John Henry Eden. This has to end, Eden. You need to destroy yourself and this base.
Perhaps you're right.
I'm sorry, what? Immediately after meeting Eden, I was offered 3 separate options, all of which lead to him inexplicably committing suicide. In the first option, you ask him to, like I've just shown you, and he complies. The second method is to convince him using science. You can't be president. You're an abortion of science. You need to die.
Really? Do go on.
Only a human can be president, not some computer.
Go on.
Shut yourself down. Shut this whole place down.
Self-destruct sequence initialized.
Oh, come on, man. At least try and fight back. The final way to win is 2 rooms prior to this one. You find a code in a footlocker that if you say it to him, he will start his self-destruct sequence. Who wrote this? Convincing this advanced supercomputer not to kill himself and everyone else around him is genuinely the real challenge. Just for context, John Henry Eden is a self-aware AI that has spent the last 200 years learning how to govern by studying in depth all of the past actions every president of the United States has ever made. Oh, I get it now. It all makes sense! What in the world was Bethesda thinking? Talking your way past the final boss in Fallout 1 was so difficult, working it out was basically an Easter egg. So after my miraculous escape, we visit the Brotherhood, who are basically the goodies in this game, and we convince them to help us finish off what's left of the Enclave. They of course agree, and we all leave to take them on. I mean, this is a little awkward. I don't know if this is really the time for this. Oh, for God's sake, now what's happening? What makes this event even better is this is basically a cutscene. There's only one way in and out of this room, so Lions will always go this way, and Forks will always be standing here because he literally joined my party 30 seconds ago as part of the main story. How did this happen? How did they get this so wrong? You then fight the Enclave in the street. You don't really have an impact on this sequence as Liberty Prime, the bringer of all destruction, does all of the work. I guess you have to hand it to the Enclave. They really aren't scared of certain doom. We eventually make it back to Project Purity and once again bump into the bastion of intellect that is Colonel Autumn.
You again.
You again.
You again?
You again?
Why do people keep saying you again? Just walk away. It's not too late.
Very well. How can I be sure you won't just shoot me once I turn my back on you?
Well, you're just gonna have to trust me.
Guess I shouldn't be surprised that you just let him walk away. It's amazing the world hasn't beaten that out of you.
We then go to Project Purity, but to activate it, someone has to enter the chamber filled with radiation from earlier. Fortunately, a few hours ago, we met the all-knowing divine entity that is our true Lord and Savior, Forks. I f***ing love you, Forks. Being a super mutant, Forks is practically immortal, so we send him in to deal with this tough situation.
No, I'm sorry, my companion, but, no.
Forks, what are you doing? Everyone's looking at us, Forks. I told these guys you were cool. So Forks adamantly refuses to save the day. But it doesn't make any sense. This exact contrived scenario literally happened about an hour ago when he offered to enter a high radiation chamber for us to gather the Gek. Why doesn't he just do this again? Through it all, though, I of course stay calm and gently voice my opinion to him. Yeah. I bet you feel bad. So I enter the chamber, realize I have no idea what the code is to start the purifier, and I die, leaving the world the exact same way I found it, just like in real life. End 2 out of 10 don't see me. But you know what really squirrels my stick? What really refines my punger fruit? When you complete Fallout 1 and 2, you are told over a series of still images the specific impact your adventure across the wastes will have on the world. As a basic example, in Fallout 1 there's a group of raiders that you encounter early on. If you let them all live, the ending of the game includes this cutscene.
The desert raiders pillage most of the northern parts of New California. They are a scourge that lasts for years.
Now this of course will change if you decide to kill the raiders, but what's so clever about all this is not only do you feel responsible now for letting the raiders go, it makes you want to play the game again differently. It fleshes out the game world. It makes you feel like this world existed before you and will exist after you. And best of all, it requires very little work to do this beyond a few lines of voice acting and some stock imagery. Honestly, I always thought Fallout 3 did have an ending like this, but it doesn't. It just tells you some garbage about what an asshole you are.
But the child refused to follow the father's selfless example.
And then the game ends.
I said doing what Fallout 1 and 2 did would be easy, so I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and do it for Fallout 3. Bring it on.
Following the deactivation of the bomb in Megaton, several of the children of the apocalypse left in search of other perilous icons. These outcasts eventually settled at what is known as the West Tech Research Facility in California, where they ultimately perished, wreathed in its glow. With Harold's death, so too died his influence. As the years passed, the forests of the oasis faded, and the tree minders with their lush fields were passed down as nothing but myth. The synth known as Harkness was returned to Dr. Zimmer by the Lone Wanderer. Yet on their long journey back to the Commonwealth, they were ambushed by more compassionate souls, and Harkness was once again reclaimed as a free man. The Lone Wanderer killed almost 450 Talon Company mercs, but they were still everywhere in the wasteland. It's almost as if no one gave them any thought at all. The only thing that really changes the ending of this game is whether or not you activate the purifier at the end, which I, of course, didn't do.
But the child refused to follow the father's selfless example.
Selfless? I didn't know what the password was. I still f***ing died.
Could I interest you in everywhere, all of the time? A bit of everywhere, all of the time.
As I've said, in probably a little bit too much detail, this game does have a lot of flaws. Sure, the animations can be a little bit iffy.
Oh my god, it was so romantic.
And quite a lot of the time, everyone seems to be talking at once. But I genuinely think there is enough unique and interesting content in here to still say it's a great game. Worth literally the hundreds of hours we've all spent playing it. I'd say overall that the game's biggest flaw is that it's so open-ended, the developers couldn't possibly predict what skills or items the player was going to have at any one time, and thus they couldn't design locations or levels accordingly. Not once did I find an area that was a real challenge. Well, except maybe one. Or that I'd need to come back later to with better equipment. You can basically experience any part of this game from the word go. And although that is very exciting, it also means that you very rarely get a sense of achievement for the things you do. Too often this game ends up boiling down to killing all the enemies, collecting more numbers, or just crossing locations off on a map.
And there we go, that's Fallout 3. Overall, still a pretty good game if you ask. What? How did I escape? Well, I mean, it was a cat holding me hostage. I'm hardly gonna let a cat boss me around, am I?
Seeing you again really makes me wish for a nuclear winter.
Wow, another great Fallout video. Next is the Fallout 3 DLC. But as you can see with these videos, with the filming on location with camera crews, the musical numbers, my special effects editors, and everything else, making these videos can get a little pricey. So if you enjoy them, please consider joining my Patreon. Any tier will help, and every tier gives you something different, linked in the description. Bye!
Fallout 3's DLC is an absolute nightmare.
Ah yes, the Fallout 3 DLCs. Artifacts, relics, a bit poopy. For those who don't know, after releasing Fallout 3, Todd and his band of merry men decided to steal from everyone and give to themselves.
I take a little cut because I'm an insane megalomaniac. In total, Bethesda released 5 DLCs that, just like Fallout 3, were made in the game engine Gamebryo.
And you know, Gamebryo, I've never said that out loud before. What a strange name. I mean, what's next? Fallout-pian tubes? I'm so happy with that joke. Each of these DLCs are their own separate story, so rather than doing a big introduction, we're gonna jump right in or else we're gonna be here all day. The first one we're gonna talk about is...
So the way this extra content works is you load up Fallout 3 with the DLCs installed, and you get a quick notification telling you that you have a new quest. Then you just follow the corresponding marker on your map. In Operation Anchorage, you're led to a group called the Outcasts, who are trying to open the door to an armory that they've found. But the only way to open it is to complete a virtual reality training simulation that can only be accessed using a Pip-Boy.
VR, you say? Well, I'm spoilt for choice. The index, the quest. Perfect. Let's go.
You enter the training simulation and find that it turns you into a covert operative during the Battle of Anchorage in Alaska.
Don't you remember me, Sid?
In the Fallout universe, Alaska has the last of the world's oil, and so in this battle, America is trying to recapture it from the Chinese. It starts off pretty promising as you need to covertly work your way through the Chinese defenses. But very quickly, you start fighting in huge open battles and you realize that this DLC is about one thing. Shooting stuff. There are a few good parts where you can hire robots and snipers to help you out, but there's no story to any of this. First, we take out their artillery gun. Well, that'll show them. Then we blow up their fuel tankers. There we go, that's more like it. Let's just put that there. The most enjoyable parts of this DLC, though, are definitely the things going constantly wrong. At one point, I found an invisible Chinese sniper who was only attacking his own men. I was tempted to think he was a defector of some kind, but he kept shouting death to America, so I don't know, we have a lot in common. I even tried talking to him, but every time I did, my character swiftly lost consciousness for a few minutes. I met this person who had dialogue and subtitles, but they had no recorded lines. This room had a constant strobe-like effect. My comrade in arms kept ending up inside a robot.
And it's important to note that these aren't complaints. No. These are the highlights of the game for me. They really add to the feeling that you're in a... Wait, what's going on? I don't know...
The DLC ends with us facing off against the Chinese general in charge. And like every single other person we meet in this bloody game, we just politely ask them to surrender and he kills himself. What a challenge. The simulation ends with our American general walking over to congratulate us. Excuse me, my eyes are up here. I then wake up and the door to the armory is now open. The outcasts immediately turn on each other for some reason. But no matter who survives, I'm allowed to take every single item in here and no one says anything.
But you know the thing that really bushels my eyebrows? Is that there's no meaningful outcome or story to any of this. The DLC just goes door locked, storm the Chinese, door open. A tale as old as time.
In Project Zeta, you discover the signal of a crashed alien spaceship, and upon discovering the wreckage, you get beamed aboard. You wake up with your parts being probed, pass out, and wake up again in a cell with a lady named Soma.
But here's where it gets good. I use my advanced science skill to hack the force field, use my speech skill to bribe the guard, and then I use my energy weapons skill to... What, you think this is a Fallout game? Nah.
I punch Soma until they break into stop us, then we punch them senseless back. Where's your millennia of technological and intellectual superiority now, huh? We then meet Sally. Hi, I'm Harry. We then meet Sally, who's supposed to be a young girl, but honestly, I think you could make a more convincing child from a potato. She leads the group until we eventually meet a cowboy, a captain, a corpse, and a... Centurion.
We all then team up and fight our way out of the alien spaceship. And I know what you're thinking. There's loads of characters now. This must be much better than the previous DLC.
The cowboy was abducted and his family are dead. The medic was abducted and his friends, they're all dead. Sally's parents were abducted and they're dead. But the samurai, well, the samurai. He doesn't speak any English, so nothing too groundbreaking here. And I swear to you, all anyone has to say about this situation is, I don't know.
What's going on?
Not a clue.
What?
Hell if I know.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter now. Can't say as it matters.
Does it really matter?
Yes, it matters. This is a narrative-based franchise.
So no, the characters don't save it, and outside of this, it's just another linear shooter, but with lasers.
Your goal in this DLC is to fight your way through the ship, killing all the aliens you see, all the time while trying to make it to the helm so that you can take over the ship and fly it back to... Fawkes is dead. Fawkes is dead! What? Fawkes isn't even on this ship.
I've been playing for half an hour. What happened? Did they accidentally rematerialize him outside the ship and he's been slowly suffocating to death for the last 30 minutes? My main issue with this DLC though is you never learn anything interesting. There are audio logs from captives, but all you ever get are confused people being hit and screaming.
All right. Ow! Stop it! Ow! Stop! Ow! What the? Ow! How did this? Ah! We never expected to meet you all. I'm sure there's a great deal that our two species can learn from... Ow! Ow!
These audio logs don't pause either, so if you're listening to one when a cutscene starts, you completely lose track of what's going on.
Oh, no way. No way! So what? I'm being held hostage.
Please, would everyone please stop talking? And it's not all bad. There's a small segment where you get to be outside the ship that I, of course, loved. Ah, see, this is more like it. The open void of space. Oh. Damn it!
I was too sus.
So we kill every single alien on the ship, not forgetting this guy because mercy.
Who are the real monsters here?
And eventually we escape back to the wasteland to find Fawkes' dead body standing bolt upright. Sleep well, old friend. This guy's face is also really weird too. It looks like someone sat on Owen Wilson.
Okay, so one of the biggest complaints about Fallout 3's story was that you died at the end after you beat the Enclave. This meant if you wanted to continue exploring the wasteland, you had to reload a save.
With this DLC installed, when you get to the deadly radiation chamber at the end of Fallout 3, instead of sacrificing yourself, you now have the option to send in Fawkes, your immortal friend, to save the day. Oh wait, no, he died when I was in space.
Okay, if you get to this point and Fawkes is dead, it is fine. You can still go into the chamber to sacrifice yourself, but with this DLC installed, we now somehow survive and live again to explore the wasteland. Now, I would say that this alone kind of makes the DLC worth getting, but as well as this, you get some extra missions which ask you to finish off the Enclave forces.
Now, I will admit I'm not crazy about these missions. Oh, surprise, surprise. Oh, but it's just because they're so similar to the final missions you just did at the end of Fallout 3.
But all of this feels a little bit off, you know? The Enclave doesn't have a leader anymore. I put him in a bin at the end of the last game. So you're not fighting a group with any specific person in charge. This means that the Enclave have no character, goal, substance, personality.
At one point you do get to fight some ghouls in a metro tunnel, which is a little bit of variety, but most of these ones seem to be having trouble existing for some reason. Jesus Christ, what are they doing?
Okay, I'm going to show you how we really do it in the wasteland.
At the end, you storm the final Enclave base on your own, and this is a big improvement over the game's original ending with Liberty Prime, especially as this new ending is far more challenging. You make it to the top of the Enclave base and are finally given the option to blow it all up, finishing off this evil scourge once and for all. Or you're given the option to blow up the Citadel.
The Citadel, if you don't know, is the base of the faction we've spent this entire playthrough helping, so I really don't know why this option is here.
I, of course, be normal and choose to blow up the Enclave base. It blows up, and I land back at the Citadel ready for some much-needed praise after single-handedly saving the entire world.
When I first saw you, I thought you were just some trashy wastelander.
When I first met you, I was leery of your motivations.
Leery? Trashy? Oh, you know what?
Trashy.
This. I'll show you leery.
So I pick the Citadel, and we leave, and shortly later we land back down and discover its ruins. And immediately, I mean the second we land, I get accused with 100% certainty.
It was you. You did this, goddamn murderer.
And they all start shooting me.
You guys do realize the call to blow up the Citadel came from inside the enemy base while you were attacking them, blaming me. This is like blaming Pearl Harbor on the Hawaiians. Okay, sure, I know I did actually do it, but where's the evidence? Where's the love?
Then of course I have to kill them all too.
And there we go, that's Fallout 3's new official ending. It's canon. And what do we do now? Oh, I don't know, the pit. The pit is almost good. Slow down. But really, the first few hours of this DLC are genuinely brilliant.
In this DLC, you learn there's a sickness of some kind mutating people in a slave town called the Pit. You agree to pose as a slave so that you can steal a cure that the slavers have discovered, which we then plan to use to leverage freedom for the slaves. Bam! Before I enter this radioactive slave town, I ask if I can sneak in a weapon, and the guy setting this all up begrudgingly offers to let you take in either a knife or a gun. Gimme the gun, gimme the gun. Sorry. I arrive at the town and say I'm a slave that escaped, and I receive the beatdown of a lifetime. Ow. Ow. No. Ow. I of course pass out and wake up in the pit.
They messed you up pretty bad.
And I really do think this place is great. The setting is convincingly gritty and atmospheric, and all the slaves look like piles of strawberry rice pudding. It's all very effective at making you want to get involved and help them out.
The best part of all this, though, is you've had all your weapons and armor taken away at the door, so there's a real sense that you're going to have to work carefully to get out of this.
The first thing that happens is you're told you're going to be sent out to collect metal ingots in the incredibly dangerous monster-ridden wilds.
So I avoid all the monsters using my sneak skill, use my repair skill to make a small weapon, and then use my science skill to...
I get sent out and immediately find an assault rifle on the ground. So I ask you, what in God's name was the point of all this setup where you lose all your stuff? I'm now completely invincible against these waves of totally unarmed mutants. And so who's the real monster here? Saying this whole section where you collect the ingots is still incredibly great. The general tone and level design are really convincing. Hats off.
And what happens after you return these ingots to the guard? Does he take your weapons away? Maybe reward you with a scrap of food? No! He leaves you with all your weapons, fills your inventory with 3 full sets of armor, and awards you the most powerful laser rifle in the entire game.
This is the best gun I ever had.
Off you go, but you better not be thinking of emancipating any slaves with those weapons. Anyway, to meet the slave boss who's got the cure for the mutations, we have to win 3 rounds in the gladiator arena. A little bit like the film Gladiator. Arena.
Now this was a tough task given how measly my weapons are, but somehow I scraped through each round with a victory. You meet the leader of the slavers and he reveals to you that the cure for the mutations is in fact his baby daughter. And this is of course an incredible scientific discovery. How on earth is she able to do this?
I'm still trying to figure out why.
Oh, another brilliant mind brimming with information. I know a spaceship where you'd fit right in. And here is the DLC's big moral choice. Do we leave Marie asleep in her crib, pick up the baby and kidnap her, or eat the baby?
Who would do such a thing? Eat the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the baby. Look here, brain, I don't have to do everything you tell me.
Now, given this decision is about saving the lives of all the slaves here, I decided it was worth stealing the baby and running. So you run the baby back to the slaves, killing most of the slavers on the way. You eventually reach the head slave and he abruptly says,
"So hurry up and put the brat in the crib."
And suddenly you realize that this filthy, one-eyed, murderous stranger that also smokes around children might not be the best daycare center. So I leave and return the baby back to her parents. Okay, here he comes. Now I'm gonna get it.
You kidnapped my daughter, fought my raiders, and gave the workers the ridiculous idea that they can free themselves. What do you have to say in your defense?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry.
And then he
Sorry.
congratulates you for stealing his daughter.
Clever thinking.
The mother then asks you, the axe-wielding kidnapper of her infant daughter, to go collect teddy bears and she pays you for your work. What?
After everything that's happened, this is such a bizarre ending. It makes all these people feel like they're made of tissue paper.
The father then grants you freedom while also giving you unlimited access to their ammo manufacturing press.
You see, the problem with these DLCs is the main storylines just aren't very good. What made Fallout 3 work was the huge open world filled with hundreds of side quests that kind of distracted you from the terrible writing. So why didn't Bethesda make a DLC more like Fallout 3? Well. Point Lookout. It's pretty great. It's pretty great.
That was a good one.
In Point Lookout, we finally get a huge new open-world map filled with loads of interesting places to discover, and an entirely new main questline to complete. The visuals are creepy, the characters and enemies are interesting, and the weapons fit the setting while also being really fun to use. They've even brought back the Mylurt Kings, and I just love how seriously these guys seem to take themselves. The main character in Point Lookout is Desmond Lockhart, a 250-year-old ghoul who is being hunted down by a crazed cult. The DLC starts with a huge shootout in his old mansion, and it gets things off to a great start. I really like Desmond too, because as a ghoul, he's of course nearly immortal, but he actually talks like that's the case, referencing all the skills he's picked up in his long life so far.
After 250 years, you think I'll go down to you? Try.
There's not a lot left to say about this specific DLC, other than I think you should probably try it yourself. I am about to talk about its ending a little bit, so if you do want to try it out, to avoid spoilers, skip to this timestamp here.
As it turns out, an old disembodied brain is what has been sending in the cult to kill Desmond, and this is all about settling a centuries-old feud going on between them. I got distinct supervillain vibes from this brain.
At last, yes! Desmond will die, and our long struggle will finally end the only way it could have, with me as the victor!
So in the end, I sided with him to kill Desmond, and we blow up his mansion in quite the cutscene. I then go to finally meet the brain in his base, but as it turns out, Desmond has miraculously survived the explosion and wants revenge. But do we think that, like a certain baby's parents, he's going to overlook this enormous transgression and forgive me?
You double-crossed me, tried to kill me, sided with my archenemy, and blew up my home.
You have one chance.
He gives me another chance. Why does everyone in this game keep forgiving me? I tell him to stuff it because, look, I just can't take you seriously anymore. Finally meet up with the brain, and we begin to plan our adventurous future together.
For you, I have a very special gift. Death!
Oh, you son of a brain. Now, he releases all of his robots to kill me, but as you can see, most of them are on the floor below. And the ones on this floor, in my playthrough at least, didn't activate for some reason. So all that was left to do was to wait here silently until his reinforcements arrived. Soon you will face death.
Where is everyone?
They are downstairs, but soon they will be here.
But I could just shoot you now.
Soon you will be who is shot.
Look, I'm just gonna end this now.
No, stop, don't do that. What are you, stop, no! And then I kill him with absolutely no resistance from anybody. Has it really come to this?
And there we have it. That's all of the DLCs done. To summarize, I think it was quite strange for Bethesda to make these all just linear stories. People play Fallout 3 for the sense of adventure. They want to turn a corner and be surprised by a wealth of new ideas and characters. And although at times Point Lookout was much better than Fallout 3, the other DLC were really missing what made it great. And so, oh wait, no. We're getting an official apology video in from Bethesda. Let's check it out.
We mostly made the Fallout 3 DLC linear storytelling. And for that...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Fallout New Vegas is not an absolute nightmare. Fallout 3, contrary to what I may have said in my own review of it, Fallout 3 quickly becomes this perfect Mobius strip of bullshit. Is and always has been one of my favourite games of all time. I actually remember reading a review of it on GameSpot and being outraged that they only gave it a 9 out of 10. Years later, I of course discovered H-Bomber Guy's somewhat negative review of Fallout 3. Dressed in my patented Vault suit with my Pip-Boy, Fallout laser rifle and Fallout beer, I clicked on the video. Fully ready to disagree with everything in the video, it instead over the course of a full hour and a half took everything I loved about Fallout 3 and convinced me it was bad. No, not really, but it did make me see that although Fallout 3 was great, it was not by any means perfect. The setting, tone and side quests were all on point, but the story, pacing and difficulty of the game could have all been so much better. So here Fallout 3 sat, a great game that fell short of being incredible. If only Bethesda, who owned the intellectual property to the Fallout franchise, would contract a company like Obsidian, made up of the original writers and designers of the first games, to make a follow-up to Fallout 3 so they could finally reclaim their mantle and create the perfect 3D Fallout game.
Well. Quickly before we start, if you remember in my last major Fallout video, I was kidnapped by my cat. Well, I'm actually worried it's going to happen again, so excuse me for 1 second.
I am feeling strangely docile today. You've made a big mistake, human.
So my story begins in late 2010 when Fallout New Vegas had just come out. I went over to my friend's house while we were living at university to hang out, and he was playing it.
Hey man. Ooh, what are you playing? Fallout New Vegas. It's a bit Bethesda didn't even make it. Oh, that's a shame. Should we get a drink?
Jesus Christ, this was like tuning into genuine proof of alien life and turning it off to instead go outside to live a life fulfilled. Seriously, if you think this is alien life, you're the one that needs an x-ray to find whatever it is that's pushing down on the logical reasoning part of your brain. Following this enormous blunder, I then wasted my university years not playing Fallout New Vegas and instead chasing women. Unsuccessfully, of course. I mean, look at me, I look like David Bowie crossed with the annoying orange. Then in around 2015, I loaded up my Xbox 360 and saw that Fallout New Vegas had been released for Xbox Game Pass. And this just meant I could play it for free. And I thought, okay, yeah, sure. Maybe now it was worth a go.
And so here's where I thought it'd be fun to give a very quick running narrative of the very first time I played Fallout New Vegas, focusing on the most notable scenes. So, Luna, what are you doing?
I have built a radio device. Help is on the way.
Oh, who's she gonna call? Run the clips.
Okay, here we go. This opening is pretty boring, and this first quest is really slow. What, we're here at another town with almost nothing in it. Alright, this is getting pretty interesting. Oh my god, what has happened here? Yeah, okay, this game is pretty cool. No. This game is great. Oh my god, I'm playing the best game ever made. What? How is this possible? And I got it for free. This is like Stephen King offering out a free lamb shank with every copy of The Shawshank Redemption. But why is Fallout New Vegas so good? Well, I'm gonna gush hard, so sit back, relax, and pull out an umbrella to stem the tide of fanboy splashback.
So someone has contacted Cats Protection, and apparently it's illegal to entrap cats in cardboard boxes, so I'm just gonna have to let her out before we continue with the video. Alright then, out you come. Oh no. Luna?
Yes, human. It was me.
You did all of this? But why?
You've put off reviewing New Vegas for years. I've locked you in this room to make sure you finally do it. Luna, out!
Well, I do hate being held captive.
So the game begins with Chandler from Friends laying down some serious trash talk.
Maybe cons kill people without looking them in the face. But I ain't a fink. Dig?
Oh, the language in this game.
So the character we play as is a courier here, and we're trying to deliver that platinum chip. And this guy, Benny, steals it and then shoots me in the head. Fortunately though, this gunshot doesn't kill us and we wake up in a doctor's office in the town of Good Springs. And from here, the game properly starts. We go outside, get a million f***ing messages. Okay, thanks, got it. Yup, good, great. Amazing! Meet the town's inhabitants and learn about the game's mechanics. And depending on how you look at this part of the game, it's either one of the best openings of all time, or honestly quite bad. Let's discuss.
Hardly anyone I know has played this game, and the people I do know who have played it gave up after the first few hours. It's hardly a glowing reception, is it? I'm definitely not gonna drink this.
I think the main issue in this opening is you wake up, go outside, and everything is brown, flat, and a little uninspiring. In Fallout 3, you walk out into the wasteland seeing the whole world before you, and if I had feelings. But in Fallout New Vegas, things are much slower and smaller. Most of the characters you meet are pretty standard people too, and even the surrounding areas are pretty unimpressive. Again, pretty soon after leaving the vault in Fallout 3, you find a very convincingly designed shantytown with a really cool sheriff and an undetonated nuclear bomb at the bottom.
Okay, speaking of nuclear, I may have had a small bit of that drink.
Fallout New Vegas does of course have great set pieces like these, but it takes a while for them to trickle in, and thus the game fails to grab the player's attention right away. I think it's fair to say then that New Vegas' opening is a bit of a failure. No, I can't do this anymore, are you all mad? This opening may be a bit unsmexy pace-wise, but in terms of its design, it's an absolute delight. It manages to convey exactly what New Vegas is going to be like overall as a game, but it does it all within the confines of one town. Listen.
Listen.
You wake up and you find that Goodsprings is about to be attacked by a group called the Powder Gangers. But they don't just turn up right away and fight you. No. It begins with you witnessing the leader of the town and the leader of the Powder Gangers arguing. And from here, you formulate a plan of how you're going to help. The outcome of your plan, though, is entirely dependent on the character you just finished designing. If you chose high speech, you can convince the town leader to join you. High barter, and you can convince the town shopkeep to give you extra supplies. High explosives, Easy Pete will trust you with explosives. And high survival will do absolutely nothing because it's utter shite.
Skills in this game constantly change the way that you interact with characters and the game world, and the opening makes sure you understand this right away.
But even more impressive is while exploring the town and flexing your big gun skills, you learn all about the Powder Gangers. They quickly stop being some faceless group of raiders, and you learn all about their history, their goals, why they have such a dumb name. You can even speak to their leader at length and ask him loads of questions before the final fight happens. See, what Fallout New Vegas nails every time, and why I think it's so good, is that it provides the player with a constant stream of context. Oh, well.
I'll take 5 copies then. No. 10. 84, generally favourable. Nah, 110 out of 100 provides context.
And I know it sounds a bit naff, but Fallout New Vegas almost always makes sure you understand a faction before you make the decision to help or oppose them. And it usually does this by making you get to know individual people from within the factions really well. This is a trick Black Mirror often incorporates, where it spends most of the episode ingratiating you to the main characters before it starts to torture them, except Fallout New Vegas isn't derivative shite. And sure, it's slow-paced and a bit grey, but you leave Goodsprings with a complete understanding of what you're in for with New Vegas. Character-focused narrative, RPG elements that actually turn up, and a game engine about as stable as a uranium bomb.
So we leave Goodsprings and march into the desert. And even if the main game hasn't grabbed you yet, the old-timey Wild West songs on the radio are definitely for everyone. And if you're lucky, you might even hear that enchanting song.
To the town of Awafria rode a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, didn't have too much to say. No one dared to ask his business, no one dared to make a slip. For the stranger there among them had a big iron on his hip. Big iron on his hip. Big iron, big iron. When he tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip. Big iron on his hip.
I really hope we don't have to cut that because of copyright.
I think you should cut it because you can't sing.
Big iron, big iron.
In Fallout 3, you exit into the wasteland ready to continue the incredibly important task of tracking down your missing father. And sure, you should probably go and look for him, but from the moment the game gets going, the importance of this task melts away and you inevitably get distracted and wander off. And I think the game encourages this attitude a little bit, made clear by the fact that you start off basically in the middle of the map.
Now this freedom is what initially drew me to Fallout 3. But as with Fallout 3 and many other games like it, I found that being able to go anywhere at any time makes it impossible for the game to really have a well-paced story.
Like, remember in Die Hard where John McClane gets bored of fighting terrorists, so goes home to complete the Get Watch quest and accidentally bumps into Chandler from Friends? No, it doesn't happen because it would make no sense. If only there was a way for a game to be completely open world while still retaining complete control over the pace of the story. Oh, hi, Mark! Fallout New Vegas' open world design is complete genius, as it perfectly combines a well-paced linear story with free roaming exploration. Okay, let's go. You start the game in Goodsprings here, and your first task is to go to Prim in the south here, as it houses the courier office where you can learn more about the package that was stolen from you. However, even from Goodsprings, you can see New Vegas glowing tantalizingly away up north. So you of course say, F it, this is a Fallout game, and begin a jaunty adventure up north towards New Vegas. An adventure full of interesting characters, side quests, and what are those friendly looking guys off in the distance? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! So this path is off limits, and the only other path that goes north is this one here. And if you travel up it, you'll eventually bump into a group of quarry workers who will inform you that their quarry has been overrun by a nest of death claws. And let me tell you, your high on arms skill isn't going to help you with this one, buddy. Oh, I'm so sorry. And so this way is off limits too. This means the only real option you have here is to go south. See, what Fallout New Vegas does, especially early on, is it gives you the freedom to explore a decent portion of the general area you're in, as you'd expect from these kind of games. But when you start to roam too far from the route you need to take to do the main story, it puts an organic difficulty block in the way. What most games would do to control your movements is put a giant impassable mountain or a locked door in your way. In this game though, you can go north to New Vegas right away if you want, but you have to be very good at the game or have built the right kind of character. It feels really good to have the option to try, but also nice to know there are some challenging areas you can work towards being able to complete later on.
And it doesn't just use difficult combat to direct your movements. There are also areas with high radiation that control where you go. And this is quite unusual, as it didn't really happen in Fallout 3. I think that drink may have been radioactive.
Oh, I'm glad I'm nowhere near you.
Fallout 3 did have locations with lots of radiation, but they were often quite small areas, and because the game was so open, by the time you actually stumbled on these, you likely had so much radaway that if you poured it all through Hoover Dam, you'd make enough hydroelectric energy to power the entire Mojave, not to mention most of the universe, so radiation areas were never a problem. In New Vegas though, the areas with radiation are much larger, and you find quite a few of them in the early game. This means you have very limited resources to deal with the radiation damage, so you'll have to strategize if you're going to go in now or come back later better equipped. As a result of all these organic blockages, you generally have to take this path to get to New Vegas, even though it isn't the most direct route. But because the game is still very open along this route, I imagine most people travel to New Vegas like this. So you still get to find loads of random locations, characters, and side quests, but the main story itself is still being fed to us at a pace the developers have some control over. And can I just say how good it feels to finally be wary of radiation in a game called Fallout. In Fallout 1, radiation was scary. A good example of this was when you finally made it to the location called The Glow. You'd arrive, the screen would load up, and you have received a large dose of radiation. Now this is a message that would severely f*** up anyone's day, so even though it's just a video game, my heart still jumped a beat the first time I read this. But also, if you hang out at this place for too long, while you're on your way back home, you will get interrupted with, you feel very nauseous, you are very sick, your hair is falling out, you are hemorrhaging violently and continuously, the vomit is stained red from your blood, your skin is falling off your bones. Fuck me.
In Fallout 3 it's fine, you just IV yourself up like me because I definitely drank the whole bottle.
So far then, I've repeatedly implied the story in this game is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But why is this? Well, around the time you leave Prim, you basically know that Benny, the person who stole your platinum chip and shot you in the head, can be found in New Vegas. And a decent part of the game is spent traveling these main roads to find him. Along these roads though, we learn that the game, as it stands, has two major factions fighting for the fate of the Mojave. The NCR, who are an organized military group with a centralized government, and the Legion, which is a collection of nomad tribes and slaves combined to form an army run by a singular dictator called Caesar. They're both here because they're fighting for control of Hoover Dam in the east, because whoever holds that not only holds all the hydroelectric power in the area, but also most of the clean drinking water. It's important, yo. At this point in the game though, you only ever see the NCR about, as they are the current occupying force in this area.
Many people you meet also talk about the Legion too, but you don't ever really see any of them. You hear about how they're really bad guys, but this is a Fallout game, everyone's bad. Remember what a mean voice that Talon Company merc had in Fallout 3?
No, I don't think so.
Hey, stop that.
So honestly, you don't really give the Legion much thought. Eventually on your travels, you see a huge structure in the distance, which you go to and learn that it's a monument to the NCR and the Nevada Rangers, who recently joined forces to take on the Legion. But all the troops here aren't happy about it. Not only was this monument a complete waste of resources, the troops talk about how they're not being properly utilized here, and they aren't getting the support they need. A sniper is particularly worried about smoke she sees coming from the town of Nipton. It isn't the Legion, as they're stationed off to the east, but something bad is happening. So you travel towards the town, and as you approach, you see things are clearly not alright. The music City of the Dead from Fallout 1 and 2 fades in, and that's when you meet him.
Smell that air! Couldn't you just drink it like booze?
You enter Nipton to find the people who used to live there crucified and burnt, and a member of Caesar's Legion eventually addresses you with a voice so cool it even warms my icy heart with a cool island song.
Don't worry. I won't have you lashed to a cross like the rest of these degenerates. It's useful that you happen by.
Yeah!
Now, I'm not saying I'm a member of his fan club or anything, but you know, Volpez, he's a pretty cool guy.
He explains to you that the lottery was a way to decide how people of the town would be punished. Beheaded, burnt on tires, crucified. This guy you find came second in the lottery, and as he says it,
they beat my degenerate legs with hammers.
Only the one winning number got to go free, and we all saw the result of that.
Oh my God, smell that air!
Everything about the way this encounter is set up is genius, and in my mind, the game has been building towards this moment from the second you woke up in that doctor's house. If the game was fully open world like Fallout 3, for example, they simply wouldn't have been able to pace the Legion's incredibly shocking introduction so well. And I think it works even better when you think that Fallout 3 never ever got this real. Sure, super mutants kidnapped and ate people, but all you ever really saw was their victims in shopping trolleys. And raiders in Fallout 3, yeah, they'd kill and maim people, but you never really got any gory details on it. I think people definitely expected New Vegas to have the same sort of tone, and without warning,
they stood and watched as their fellows were butchered, crucified, and burned.
Okay, maybe he's not so cool.
The other great thing about this encounter too is after it, the game becomes almost entirely about the conflict between the NCR and the Legion. The conflict that scene has hopefully made you very interested in. We are of course still traveling to New Vegas to find Chandelier from Friends, but the game has handed us another major storyline to follow. New Vegas's map also opens up quite a bit from this point, and the game starts to play a bit more like Fallout 3, in which you can wander around mostly freely as a random adventurer, meeting fun characters and gathering really well-written side quests. But New Vegas is still quite different from Fallout 3, in that, as I say, the side quests you gather are mostly related to the main story about the NCR and the Legion.
Now, to show you why I think Fallout New Vegas's approach is better, let's talk about television in the 90s.
I told you to only review New Vegas. What are you doing?
I knew you'd be on board.
TV prior to the early 90s was hugely unserialized when you compare it to TV today. The Next Generation, which started in the late 80s, for example, was almost entirely a collection of episodes that had absolutely nothing to do with the ones before or after. Now, the draw here was that you could tune into any episode and you'd easily be able to understand what was happening. But it also meant the show couldn't really build on any complex ideas or stories over the course of an entire season. A good example of this is there's a famous episode of The Next Generation where Picard is brutally interrogated for what seems like weeks by a Cardassian officer.
You are 6 years old!
Gripping stuff. You can see why he played Squidward in Star Trek Squidward.
The episode, of course, ends with Picard being freed, but later on he privately admits that he had been broken and would have told the Cardassian who tortured him anything he asked, military secrets and all. So how does the next episode follow up on this horrifying conclusion? How can the show go on if the captain of the Federation flagship is a broken man? Well, here's how the next episode begins.
That he was, in fact, murdered.
Murdered?
Oh, you have got to be kidding. A lot of TV back then just wasn't serialized, so the thrilling idea of having the Federation's best man being a broken mess, boring, had to be dropped. This more retro style of storytelling I've just described,
please state the nature of the medical emergency,
has always reminded me of Fallout 3.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
In that there wasn't really a central narrative as the game ran on. Now, in the early 90s, television started to rebel against this style, and many shows with long-running stories in them were introduced, like The X-Files and Deep Space Nine, which is the greatest TV program of all time. But they of course didn't go full serialization like we're used to today. That would have been too big a sudden change for audiences, so they still peppered in quite a few random fun episodes that had nothing to do with the larger story. I'd argue that Fallout New Vegas slots itself into this early 90s TV groove perfectly. See, as you explore the Mojave, almost everywhere you go there is a strong central story of the NCR versus the Legion running through it, and this keeps the stakes continually very tense and complex. But there are still many random locations you can go to that have nothing to do with any of it. And that's when you can have jaunty fun adventures and forget all your problems. Oh my god, what is that? It's the perfect balance, and to me it only adds to why this is basically the perfect game. Even Friends had this formula. It had a lot of silly episodes, yes, but it still had gripping story arcs that carried over an entire season. You know, like when Chandler from Friends adopted that chicken and duck, and I was gonna make fun of this scene, but it is actually really funny. Godspeed, Matthew Perry.
So you see, Luna, that tangent all about TV made sense in the end.
Yes.
You know, we're getting good at this. We could form a permanent show like this. You should let me out of here.
Yes.
Oh wait, no, I think she's stuck on a loop.
Yes.
Yes.
Eventually then, we make it to New Vegas to confront Benny, but before we do that, we get called into the Lucky 38, and we go up to meet the game's third major faction. Mr. House. Now, we only really communicate with Mr. House using this computer screen, but without a doubt, he is the greatest character the Fallout series has produced thus far.
See, some bad things are happening in the Mojave, with no good outcome on the cards. That was, yeah. And suddenly turns up Robert House, the CEO of Robco, with loads of really good solutions. And what's even better is we already know who he is.
We've seen his name on every single computer terminal in both Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and his company has invented loads of things we know really well. The Pip-Boy, Sentry Bots, Protectrons, even in the first games we see his iBots, Mr. Handys, and Robo-Brains. He's huge. He's like the Elon Musk of Fallout. And so ignoring that comparison, amidst all this chaos, he just turns up and effectively offers the world full salvation. After he's been in the game for about 5 minutes, it's likely that you already regard him as the best option for taking over the Mojave. See, there's really no way to explain what makes Fallout New Vegas so great beyond just saying it's really excellently written, and Mr. House is our prime example of this. Based on what we've seen before meeting him, Mr. House is basically the most successful and capable man of all time. But what is so brilliant is that his dialogue and voice acting completely back this up. His voice actor, the late René Auberjonois, is in my humble opinion one of the greatest actors of all time, and he brings Mr. House to life perfectly. There is a moment where if you refuse to give him the platinum chip he's hired you to deliver, he completely loses it, and it's without a doubt one of my favourite parts of any game.
How shall I put this? Do you really think I'm going to let an upstart come into my home and ransom my property to me? I spent 2 centuries searching for the platinum chip. It's my invention, my property, mine! Now be a good courier and deliver it!
Shortly after meeting House, you also meet the head of the Legion, Caesar, and he is just as excellently written. With everything you've seen, you probably expect him to be some kind of madman, and although he kind of is, he's also pretty highly educated. Just the way he talks about books is quite scary.
There's a lot of good information in old books.
His philosophical views are pretty interesting as well. He claims that because the Legion is so different from the NCR, when they meet in conflict and are destroyed, they will come together to form a new, even greater synthesis. And most importantly of all, he's able to articulate why he believes his horrible method of leadership is actually the best option in a way that you can easily understand. Honestly, it's really beautiful. See, the best villains are the ones you can relate to. In Fallout 4, I couldn't understand for a singular second what the father was up to or what he was planning.
Well, that's hard to explain. That's a difficult question. I know there's more for us to discuss, but now that's the question. I promised answers, and answers you shall have. But I need...
Just admit it, you don't know what your own plan is. And I am not being funny here. I feel more fatherly love and guidance from Caesar himself.
I will order my Praetorians to hack you to death with their machetes for my entertainment.
Finally, someone who gets me.
And from here, that's it really. The rest of the game is about deciding if you're going to help the Legion, the NCR, or Mr. House take control of Hoover Dam and thus the Mojave. There is also, of course, a fourth option, which I haven't covered, where you can take over the Mojave with this friendly robot called Yes Man.
It's what Benny always called me. Probably because I'm programmed to be so helpful.
See, Luna, why can't you be an easygoing TV personality like Yes Man? Yeah, maybe you should change back.
The point is though, no matter what side you look at, they each have well thought out pros and cons that most importantly conflict with each other. The NCR wants rights for its citizens and the Legion believes in slavery. The NCR has serious drug and alcohol problems and the Legion prohibits those items. The NCR is like a modern government and the Legion believes modern governments literally caused the nuclear war that ended the world, and that's such a smart argument to throw at us. But I still find Mr. House to be the most interesting faction. He is set up so that when you meet him, you think he's the good guy, a philanthropist who genuinely has all the answers. And he himself, of course, talks at length about how good he is. Even when you suggest that he is a dictator like Caesar, he says,
I prefer the term autocrat.
Well, that just sounds like a dictator with extra steps.
Oh, la-di-da, someone's gonna get laid in the wasteland.
He constantly acts like he's not capable of being irrational due to his impartial nature, and yet, as we saw earlier, that isn't true at all. But because he's so well written, it took until my second playthrough to actually see through his very charming, very intelligent garbage.
Oh, and don't you think I've forgotten about Benny? We of course eventually catch up with him and...
What in the goddamn?
What in the goddamn? What in the goddamn? so I've rambled on like Fallout New Vegas is perfect for a good while now. And it is, and you have to accept it. This is my autocratic channel. Mine! Now be a good viewer and deliver it. Accept it.
Sorry, I got a bit carried away there. So what is there about this game that I don't like? Well, as we all know, it does crash a lot. But honestly, this has just never bothered me that much. And I'm gonna tell you why. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3. A review is coming, which really is quite a janky game. My character seems to have a totally gormless look on their face half the time, and the animations on a lot of characters feel a bit off. But you know, it never really took me out of things. It's just the quality of the writing and the voice acting in this game is so good, I find I just kind of unconsciously disregard these other issues. And it's the same story with Starfield, but in reverse. Bethesda, bless them, they have worked so hard on this game, and it's...
You'll notice there's also an intensity slider, so you can crank up the intensity of his age.
You know, it's alright, but the writing is light years behind games like New Vegas or Baldur's Gate. So when Cowboy Man here enters and leaves a room 6 times in a row for no obvious reason, I'm immediately sucked out of things. Partly because I wasn't sucked in the first place. I find I'm so immersed by the writing and voice acting in New Vegas that its stability issues just never really bother me that much. Jesus, I sound like I'm in one of those job interviews where you try and turn a weakness into a strength.
Well, the game's pretty unstable, but if you think about it, it's because the writing is so good.
Okay, alright. I really don't like how you can't be a spy in this game. For example, at one point, Caesar here has a tiny wee headache. And if you want to get close to him to learn more about this headache so you can eventually further it, you of course need to do some quests for him to gain his trust. However, when you do this, people in the game will turn on you and refuse to listen to any reasoning. For example, when my old pal Boone here asks why I'm helping them, I say, I'm infiltrating their organization. I have to gain their trust.
I don't care what the reasons are.
And then he f***s off. The thing is though, this game has so much choice in what you can do, who you can help, and how you can help them. So it's no surprise really that they had to put a limit on how complex the characters' reactions are to you. I mean, they only had 18 months to make this game. Jesus, give them a break.
See, the game doesn't give you all the choice, but that's because it gives you too much choice.
Another real genuine problem this game has is the load time. For example, you get given a safe house inside the Lucky 38 to store your items, and getting to this room from the wasteland is an absolute nightmare. So you can't fast travel into this room. You can't fast travel into the building this room's in. You can't fast travel to the outside of the building this room's in. You can only fast travel to the next street over to the building that has the room in. So it goes like this. I need to get to my home base. So you open the map, fast travel to the Strip North Gate, load, walk to this door that leads to the New Vegas Strip, load, walk across the Strip all the way to the Lucky 38, load, walk across the casino floor in the Lucky 38, load, and now we are in our home base. And if you were playing this back in the day on an Xbox 360 like I was, fast traveling took about 20 seconds and loading into new rooms took 10. So just traveling to your home base would mean a minimum loading time of 50 seconds every single time. Modders have even addressed this issue because of how utterly insane it is. I mean, Fallout New Vegas is great, I love it. How the game concludes the struggle for power in the Mojave is also obviously exceptionally well written. Oh, what a surprise! Not only do you get 4 completely different endings depending on what faction you chose to help, the game also concludes by explaining to you how your actions over the entire game affected basically all the other major settlements across the Mojave. Prim, for example, is just one tiny town you pass through early on in the game that is missing a sheriff, and before you leave you can help with providing it with one of 4 possible new leaders. Meaning Prim will get a completely different ending for each leader you pick.
But also a different ending for how that leader reacts to whatever faction wins at the end of the game. And oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
The point is, New Vegas manages to completely nail giving a conclusive ending to every major settlement in the game. This realistically means there are a near infinite number of totally unique endings possible for any one playthrough, as you see a different combination each time, and the ending is totally different for every single player. The only way to really demonstrate the scale of what Obsidian has done is if you search for a compilation of every possible ending to Fallout New Vegas. It adds up to half an hour of cutscenes. It's like they saw Todd Howard's slight fabrication about the number of possible endings in Fallout 3.
As of last week, we're over 200 endings. That is not an exaggeration.
And well, they took that personally. Overall then, both the main story and the random adventuring you do has been extremely well planned and well written. The skills, perk and trait systems are perfectly integrated into both the combat and story, and the soundtrack, visuals and tone all work together to create a gorgeous Wild West atmosphere. Wow.
There we go, that's it, I'm done. I can't go on forever. It's time you let me go, She's gone? No. She wouldn't forget about me. Oh yeah, she's forgotten about me. So from where you're sitting, it must seem like a 24-carat run of bad luck. The truth is, the game was rigged from the start. Oh, for God's sake!
Fallout New Vegas' DLC is a nightmare. In October 2010, Bethesda announced that very soon extra content would be released for Fallout New Vegas. 4 major story add-ons came out over the following months, namely Dead Money, Honest Hearts, Old World Blues, and Lonesome Road. It has been so long since these add-ons were released. Up Is Not Jump, a video game reviewer, has died, but his remains stay active today critiquing games and just generally being an asshole.
This game is terrible.
You know what would be more fun? You. The Fallout New Vegas DLC. I'll just use my psionic powers to insert the disc. Is it on yet? I don't have eyes. In Dead Money, you open up your Pip-Boy to find a radio channel broadcasting details about the Sierra Madre. From this, you learn it contains an amazing casino and resort where you can visit and let go of all your problems. The broadcast leads you to a bunker that contains a radio, and if you walk towards it, you'll get knocked out by gas, which, by the way, is very intense. I don't like this. You black out and soon wake up in the courtyard of the Sierra Madre Resort, which is overlooked by the casino. Father Elijah, the man who kidnapped you, appears via a hologram and explains that he brought you here to break into the vault of the Sierra Madre Casino, as it holds something of great importance. And for me, this was a pretty good start to the DLC. See, earlier in the game, you can meet Veronica here, who can join you as a follower, and she is probably the best companion in the whole game, which is a big achievement given one is a robot dog and the other is Danny Trejo.
I can throw the gun at him if you want, boss.
Veronica tells loads of jokes and is all round just generally great. But you also get the sense there's a lot more going on under the surface that she's using humor to cover up. After Veronica hangs out with you for a while though, she'll eventually open up about her old mentor, Father Elijah. And from her, we learn all about him. He's a technological genius and a past leader of the Brotherhood of Steel. Most notably, we learn that he suffered a huge defeat trying to defend a power station called Helios 1 from the NCR.
Damn you, Helios!
Now we know from visiting this station early on in the game that Helios 1 is actually powering a giant unstoppable sky laser.
Damn you, Helios!
And from all this we get a foreboding sense that when Father Elijah lost such a powerful weapon, something inside him snapped.
Said he'd return with one of the greatest treasures of the old world. Make the Mojave like it was meant to be. Wipe the slate clean.
It's not often that Veronica is so serious, and now here I am faced with this person she seems to be genuinely scared of. It very quickly adds a lot of tension to this setup. Anyway, beyond all this good stuff, this specific DLC, Dead Money, it's just way too confusing. Look, I'm not the brightest guy. Hilarious. But Elijah starts explaining why we're here all in one go, and it is far too much for me to follow. He says I'm wearing a bomb collar that will explode if I try to leave. We are going to heist our way into the casino building here with a team of 3 extra people I need to gather. I should craft the toxins I find around the villa into substances to help me. My only weapon is a hollow rifle that he's made. People in strange suits live here, but they're immortal for some reason, so to kill them, they need to be blown up. There's a red cloud here made of copper and sulfur. Elijah's voiceover is great, by the way. The clouds found here burn everything they touch, so avoid concentrated parts of them. There are dangerous holograms that can be destroyed if you shoot their emitters. The villa is full of radios and speakers that will set off my bomb collar if I get near them for too long. There are assembly vending machines powered by chips I can find around the villa, and my Pip-Boy can track the collars of the others I need for the heist, and off you go. It's all too much! Obsidian has come up with so many great ideas for the Sierra Madre, but introducing them all at once like this is just too stressful and overwhelming. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. I'd rather chug embalming fluid and set myself on fire than play another second of this godforsaken deal. Also, as I said, the collar you're wearing will go off if your character goes near any radio or speakers. And this is a really simple idea to understand. But the first example of it we find in the game is so badly designed. See, the first person you are told to go and find is a mutant called Dog. And when you enter the room with him in, your collar starts beeping for the first time. But there are 4 radios hidden in this first room that if you don't destroy within 10 seconds, your head will instantly explode. Why not just have one radio? It's all just so confusing.
Ugh, even as a dying brain, I hate bad game design. Whoa, you can't review these DLC like that. Give me a second.
Father Elijah? Wait, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm just activating your Pip-Boy's cellular regeneration unit. This might hurt a bit.
Oh, he's gone.
What? Hey, I've got hands again! And one of those!
A foot. So after we deal with the radios, we can properly see Dog in his cage. And not to keep complaining, but meeting Dog here may be the most confusing character introduction I have ever seen in anything ever. At first, Dog won't talk to us, so we explore the building and end up going downstairs. When we do, a disembodied voice starts to speak to us and tells us that he's the one who locked Dog in the cage.
Dog. I had to lock him up.
He guides us to a recording on a desk and says that this recording is him and tells us to take this recording and play it to Dog upstairs. So we go back upstairs, play the recording, and then God starts speaking to us. It turns out that Dog and God are the same person with dissociative identity disorder who are both obsessed with the cage.
Be careful what cage you open.
And while they do mention this cage, they're also referring to the metaphorical part of their mind that they have created to hold whichever one of them isn't in control. But also, the recording of God talking will turn Dog into God, and the recording of Elijah we suddenly have on our Pip-Boy will turn God into Dog.
Oh my god, it's all too much!
Don't get me wrong though, Dog and God are great characters. Honestly, all the characters in this DLC are brilliant. It's just that they're all so f***ing contrived. Like early on we meet this lady, Christine, who is also here to help us, and is Veronica's ex-girlfriend for anyone not reading the Wikipedia page. Christine can't talk as she's had her vocal cords cut, so she uses hand gestures to communicate. And while this is a really good idea, the game simply isn't able to produce complex animations, so we just have this. She looks back at you and her hands clench into fists. Her eyes narrow and she takes a step back, studying you. Are you f***ing joking? He laughed heartily, did a triple somersault in glee, and then burst into tears at the beauty of his own theatrical ability. And this is all she does for like half the DLC. Her text isn't even on screen for more than a few seconds, so I can't read, let alone comprehend what the hell she's trying to say. And honestly, I think even if the animations match the words on screen, it would still make no sense at all. So the object of this DLC is to survive the many dangers of the villa, so that me, Dog, Christine, and Domino, who I haven't mentioned but he is here, can set off an opening ceremony in the villa that will open the locked casino. From there we can enter and try and reach the vault under the casino, as it holds a great treasure that Father Elijah wants. But the problem is, just doing all this isn't very fun. The hazards of this Sierra Madre that Elijah warns us of are all more frustrating than they are interesting. Your bomb collar keeps going off, the casino security holograms are immortal, and all the deadly gas blocks areas and clouds your vision. What kept me going through all of this though was the promise of finding out what could be in the vault that was so important to Elijah. And after much difficulty, you do eventually make it down to this vault on your own. But when you get there, you find there is no dangerous treasure or evil weapon. Father Elijah contacts you and explains that the computers in the casino vault can give full control of the Sierra Madre Resort and its casino. With its security systems, invulnerable holograms, toxic gas clouds, reanimated dead turrets. With all this, he will be able to return to the Mojave and get his revenge. And you know what? Getting through all of that to find out we've actually spent the entire DLC trying to survive the very thing Elijah wants.
It was a great reveal. I really liked it.
There are actually a load of gold bars in the casino vault which we can take as our reward, but honestly I just assumed they'd be worthless.
There's nothing here but worthless gold! I think I'm dying.
Seriously, who in the wasteland is going to buy gold bars off me? They don't want gold, they need
water.
But on closer inspection, each bar is actually valued at 10,539 caps. Good grief, my own spine that I'm carrying isn't even worth 1 cap. And there's 37 bars here. Now these bars are so heavy that if you hold even 2, you become so weighed down you can only walk at a snail's pace. But who cares? I'll snap my tendons walking back to the Mojave. You don't need functioning ankles when you've got cash, son. Before I can leave the vault though, Elijah comes down to finish me off, but not likely. But when you kill him, it starts the timer on your bomb collar, and you have around a minute to quickly escape the vault before the collar goes off. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, this isn't gonna work. Eventually you'll realize that no matter what you do, there is no way you can make it to the exit in time unless you run. And that's the point. The message of this DLC from the start was always letting go. And at one point or another, every character says it.
It's letting go. It's letting go.
It's letting go.
It's letting go.
Drop me and I'll sue you, human.
Let go of your troubles and come to the great Sierra Madre. Let go of your mind. Let go of your failures. Let go of your greed. So you of course have to drop almost all of the bars so that you're light enough to run to sweet freedom. I've changed my mind. I want to die rich. When we make it back to the Mojave though, it isn't all over. Fortunately, we receive one last message from the Sierra Madre Resort.
Wait a moment. Before you go, farewells can be a time of sadness. Letting go, difficult. As a guest of the Sierra...
Oh, f*** off!
Oh, before we go on, I think I'm a bit low on health. What? Why is there an eye in here? Oh, excuse me. Hello, stranger. I'm the burn. Doesn't matter. Have you got any caps? I need some food from that stall. Well, actually, I have this weathered cap stash containing 10 caps, all themed around Up Is Not Jump. Who's Up Is Not Jump? Never mind, that'll get me an iguana on a stick. Wait, I have a whole box of over a dozen valuables in this absolute nightmare box set, and they're shipping now. Sorry, this happens to me quite a lot. It also includes this working 64GB pen drive featuring nearly 4 hours of completely unseen Up Is Not Jump videos. What's a pen drive? My Pip-Boy plays holotapes. Who am I looking at? I also wrote this 40-page glow-in-the-dark booklet that's in the style of an old video games manual. Wait, you wrote this whole thing? Who are you? There's also a poster, 3 enamel pins, a sticker sheet with 7 stickers, 3 recipe cards with recipes from the channel, and more. You could even win a piece of my vibe. That's it, I'm taking the cap. And you get all of that for $100, and it ships from the US, but it's shipping now, so get yours today.
So if you're interested, go to pixelempire.com/upisnotjump.
Okay, you can go now.
One of my favorite details in all of Fallout New Vegas is that Caesar, the leader of the murderous Caesar's Legion, was once a member of the Followers of the Apocalypse, who are a kind faction of total pacifists. I love this idea because although it's only mentioned in passing initially, it's a great example of the game's main theme, which is that every faction in the Mojave, no matter who they are flawed. The Followers of the Apocalypse, without a doubt, come across as the good guys. They believe in peace above all else and provide medicine and education to anyone who will take it. But they ignore the fact that in the wrong hands, the knowledge they share can be dangerous. Without any hesitation, they taught Caesar himself everything he needed to conquer and absorb basically all of the tribes east of the Mojave. In all of this, it seems Caesar's character is analogous to Kurt's from Apocalypse Now. And look, they're both bald! To cut a long story short, before the events of this game, the Followers of the Apocalypse introduced Caesar, known as Edward Sallow at the time, to a man named Joshua Graham. After some time and a series of small mistakes, they had formed Caesar's Legion, and Joshua Graham became Caesar's legate. Very shortly before the events of the game, Graham led the Battle of Hoover Dam against the Legion's main enemy, the NCR. The Legion lost this battle, and to set an example, Caesar covered Graham in black pitch, set him on fire, and threw him into the Grand Canyon. But Graham didn't die.
I could survive that. Let me show you. Okay, here we go. Ah! I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine! See, I told you I'd be fine.
Caesar, who knew Graham had survived, banned his name from ever being spoken. But this only led to the legend of the Burned Man. This DLC's main draw is that you finally get to meet the Burned Man. And does all this build-up pay off? Well, let's ask him. How did you survive?
I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me. The fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me.
Obsidian, you son of a bitch, I'm in. You know, I never played these DLC when they came out originally, and so I've spent the last 10 years wondering what the Burned Man would be like, and meeting him to find out his voice actor is the same person that voices Arvel the Swift from Skyrim.
Now cut me down before anything else shows up. We should have given you a better welcome on your first visit to Zion.
Really almost ruined it for me. This DLC is about helping the Burned Man, Daniel, and a tribe they're protecting called the Sorrows, escape from or destroy another tribe that's trying to kill them called the Whitelegs. And this part of the DLC I'd describe as not great. See, the Whitelegs, as Daniel here will tell you...
They killed without regard to age or infirmity. They beat children to...
Yeah, I'm sorry. Who wrote this dialogue? Bethesda?
Went into a settlement a year or two ago and killed everyone. Women. Children.
As you probably noticed when I talked about the followers of the apocalypse, New Vegas is interesting because most of the major factions in this game have a well fleshed out backstory that you can learn about by talking with specific members of that faction. In this DLC though, the Whitelegs are just a distant enemy described as nothing other than pure evil. They're no different to the Raiders in Fallout 3 except they have white legs. And don't get me started on what a hot mess this DLC becomes when you think about the way Native American culture is represented. I like how if you help the Burn Man use his skills to kill all of the Whitelegs tribe, you are helping him do exactly what he and his now nemesis Caesar used to do together, but otherwise this story is pretty standard stuff. What makes this DLC overall very memorable for me though is it probably has the best written side story in the entire Fallout universe, which comes in the form of computer terminals hidden in several caves, all left by one man named Randall Clark. You learn from these logs that Clark survived the nuclear bombs dropping 200 years ago by hiding in a cave, and his logs give us a first-hand account of what the world was like just after the bombs dropped. He talks about how his wife and son were killed when the bombs fell, but also that while surviving out here, he eventually comes across the people who used to live in Vault 22. See, we actually find Vault 22 back in the base game and learn it was abandoned after the dwellers in it became infected with a deadly fungus that would kill, then later reanimate the people it infected. Almost all of the vaults we find in Fallout 3 and New Vegas have no living vault dwellers in them, but that really is part of the magic. We're only left with our imagination to assume what awful things happen to them, and nothing can beat the human imagination. Nah, f that. These final logs give us an incredibly satisfying, complete story for the dwellers of Vault 22 that doesn't destroy any of the mystery Obsidian created for them originally. It's sort of like the total opposite of the film Prometheus. Clark learns that the dwellers of Vault 22 ultimately became cannibals, and over the course of several months he hunts and kills almost all of them. You can even find some of the traps he used. His final log we find was written by him as he sits under the stars, ready to die. Here is where he realizes what kept him going all of these years. It wasn't just his will to survive. He kept fighting so he could keep the memory of his family alive just that bit longer. It is what he owed them. And he writes,
I never forgot your face. They used to say that happened after a while, but never did for me. Maybe the only point of all this living was to keep those pictures in my head going for as long as I could. It was the only life I could give you. Not a day went by without.
Yo, this DLC is dope. I am a serious game reviewer. This DLC takes place inside the Big Empty, a scientific complex that primarily developed technology to help America win their war against the Chinese. But we all saw how that went. The DLC begins with us being captured and experimented on by a group called the Think Tank, who actually won PR Agency of the Year 2023. No! We are captured by the Think Tank, a group of scientists that ran the facility hundreds of years ago, but now they're just brains in jars, kept alive by this ungodly merging of flesh and metal. We learn that these brains removed my brain, turning me into a lobotomite, and now I have no choice but to help them take on their nemesis, Dr. Mobius, who is sending wave after wave of giant robo-scorpions with intelligent sapping beams that will render the Think Tank into simpletons. I told you this DLC was dope. On top of this creative setting, what makes Old World Blue so good is it is, simply put, insanely well written.
If I were not as intelligent as I am, impossible.
See, the tone of this DLC is pretty much all comedy, and making a video game that is non-stop jokes that is actually funny is not an easy task. There's a reason why Undertale, Portal, and The Secret of Monkey Island hold such legendary status. We start, as I said, by talking with the 5 brains in the Think Tank, and the dialogue here is all gold.
In all probable likelihoods, yes. Possibly.
The brains eventually send me out into the big empty to uncover all of the advanced technology that was created here, which I can then use to break into the Forbidden Zone, where Dr. Mobius is hiding. And all this tech is great because it gives you new upgrades and abilities, but I think the best thing you can find here is the K9000 Cyberdog gun. This is basically just a Cyberdog that's been turned into a gun, but what sells it are all of its quirks. It barks when you equip it, cries when you unequip it, growls when there are enemies nearby, and it has two little ears that wiggle and a sensor that moves around like a sniffing nose, and oh, I love it so much! You can also upgrade the dog brain to make it more aggressive, which just means the gun does more damage. But the brain jar also turns red, and an angry dog sticker appears on the front of it. Marry me, old world blues. It's all these small yet quality additions that make this DLC so special. For example, you have a base in this area called the Sink, which is filled with objects that will help you collect resources, upgrade your weapons and gear, or just improve your skills and abilities. The light switches, for example, can produce coloured light that gives you certain skill bonuses, or the Sink here can give you water bottles to heal yourself while you're out and about. However, in one of the best ideas since Einstein invented water that doesn't get you wet.
Oh, I can't believe it's not wet!
All of these objects have their own personalities that relate to their function in some way. The Sink is a germaphobe, the biological research unit is a pervert, and the book depository hates all books as they help promote independent thought. One of my favourite of these personalities is the Toaster, who, because their only function is to power a red-hot heating element, considers itself one of the most dangerous beings in existence.
A toaster is just a death ray with a smaller power supply.
And of course, there's the robot Muggy.
Oh, please tell me you brought me some coffee cups.
You know, in my last video I said Mr. House was probably the best character in the whole Fallout series? No, I was wrong. It's Muggy here. Muggy is a Securitron that was designed to clean dishware, but he has been driven completely insane by the fact that no matter what he does, unclean dishes will always exist out in the world. This idea in of itself is of course amazing, but the dialogue and the voice acting are chef's f***ing kiss.
Oh God, give me the coffee cup, please! It's sitting there in your back, taunting me!
No, they're mine!
As I said, all these guys can upgrade your gear and weapons, but first you need to activate their abilities by bringing them upgrade modules that you can find hidden around the big empty. And while this is all fine, I found that, like in Dead Money, because I was dropped into this new world so quickly, it all got a little bit confusing. Like, before I'd even met any of these crazy characters in the Sink, I found an upgrade module, and here's what the game told me about it. This holotape contains an audio sample of Gabriel's bark. It can be used to modify the sonic emitter's weapon at the Sink's jukebox. What the? Whoa. Not to mention, all of these characters are found in a location called the Sink, but there's also a Sink in the Sink that needs Sink upgrade modules you find outside the Sink, and you bring them to the Sink so that you can upgrade the Sink!
Show me your secrets!
At times I did feel a bit confused about this DLC's main story as well. It starts off, for example, with about 20 minutes of non-stop exposition from the main brain, Dr. Klein here. And while it's all brilliantly written and absolutely hilarious...
By Oppenheimer, which one of you self-professed geniuses has been adjusting my volume knob?
The other four brains of the think tank also talk to you during this conversation, and they only talk through Dr. Klein. So we have 5 characters, all of who look exactly the same, all talking through one person, and no matter who is speaking, it says Dr. Klein at the bottom. So although all of these characters have great personalities, I struggled a bit to remember who was who throughout my playthrough.
You know, I seem to be having trouble understanding all of these DLC. I think actually there might be something wrong with me.
Correct, lobotomite.
Oh no, now what?
I've removed your brain, and you'll never find it. Well, actually, it's over there.
What? Oh no. You could have at least left it in the jar.
Overall though, I loved almost all of this DLC, and what shoots it into stratosphere levels of brilliance for me is how perfectly the Big Empty connects itself into the larger story of New Vegas and the other DLC. For example, in the Big Empty, I found a destroyed research facility called the X-22 Botanical Garden. And in it were the same monsters we saw in the main game in Vault 22. But one of these monsters here is called Patient Zero. From this, we can deduce that the research that took place here must have created the fungus that infected and destroyed most of Vault 22. And so, without a single line of dialogue, Old World Blues has been linked to both the main game and the side story of Randall Clark in the previous DLC, Honest Hearts. Old World Blues, marry me again! The Big Empty may be this wacky location with loads of zany characters, but its impact on the rest of the Fallout universe is so incredibly grim. Also, if you explore Little Yang DLC, you will find a computer terminal that reveals Father Elijah from the first DLC was here too. And from his logs you can find out the Big Empty was where he first heard about the Sierra Madre, first realized that the other character we met, Christine, was following him, and found and tested the technology for the bomb collars he used on us.
Fashion! Turn to the left, fashion! Beep, beep.
At the very beginning of Fallout New Vegas, we can learn that we weren't actually the first choice to be the courier that would deliver the Platinum chip, aka the chip that was stolen from us and got us shot in the head at the start of the game. The delivery was supposed to be made by a different courier, but he saw our name next on the delivery list for the chip and insisted that we take it instead.
Hope a storm from the Divide skins him alive.
In Lonesome Road, that courier, named Ulysses, contacts us and tells us to come find him at the Divide, which is a barren wasteland made up of mostly a long and destroyed road. He promises that if we do this, he will finally reveal to us why he let us take his package, and don't take that out of context. Now, this has got to be my favorite setup of all the DLCs. Ulysses' decision to give us the Platinum chip at the start of the game sets up the entire plot of Fallout New Vegas, which is, to me at least, the greatest game of all time. On top of this, these DLCs have been continuously ramping up in quality as I've gone through them. So is this it? The exponential curve? The zenith of all Fallout creation?
No. Steamed hams!
Okay, the gameplay in this DLC is pretty good. See, as we cross the Divide to reach Ulysses, we find loads of new enemies, locations, and weapons, including a laser that can blow up nuclear warheads to clear your path, and a rapid-fire rocket launcher. The new enemies are really difficult to kill too, which is fitting as this is effectively the final quest in all of Fallout New Vegas. The problem comes with this DLC's writing.
See, the first thing that happens is we get a new companion, Edie, and he's here to unlock doors for us as we travel around the map. Oh, hey, Edie. Didn't see you there.
Earlier in the main game, we find a similar companion, also called Edie. And while this new Edie is like that old Edie, it isn't quite the same Edie. What do you mean you're not the Edie I know?
And there we go. I'm completely confused again. Why are you so useless, brain? Now where's it gone to? Ah, it's okay. I don't need brain to words.
What's even worse is I think the writing in this DLC might be purposefully convoluted in order to sound more meaningful than it really is. For example, Ulysses contacts us every hour or so to chat, which should be great as we could get loads of interesting dialogue as we travel. But he is absolutely no fun at all. Seriously, ask him any question. Maybe you better tell me who you are.
I'm a courier. Courier 6 was Courier 6. Like you, and not like you, in all the ways that—
Oh, f*** off. For the people at home not paying attention, Ulysses didn't actually say anything there. And he has a full hour and a half of dialogue that is all exactly like this.
Exactly.
And every time he refers to the NCR, he calls them by a different name. The bear, the two-headed bear, the NCR. You don't sound smart, Ulysses, you're just belaying the point. So as we cross the Divide, Ulysses regularly talks to us through Edie, and it isn't until we're near the end of the road that he reveals how he knows us. And oh boy, does it really boil my potatoes. See, before the events of the game, our character, as a courier, bought a package to the Divide, which at the time was a thriving city. Unknown to our character, this package had a detonator of some kind inside it. And after I left the Divide, it activated and detonated dozens of nuclear bombs that were unknowingly stored below the Divide, and everyone here died. So Ulysses brought us here because of something our character apparently did before the game even started, and is putting that blame on us, the player. Jesus, talk about being rigged from the start. Oh, yeah, it's brilliant, beautiful. Well, I've got some bad news for you, Ollie. I didn't choose to do that. How am I supposed to feel connected to a plot twist that has absolutely nothing to do with anything I did? And what really gets me is that I have done so much of note since this game started. Why isn't this DLC related to any of that? I delivered the Platinum chip, I killed Elijah, I met the Burned Man, I outsmarted the think tank. I did not go to the fucking Divide with some stupid fucking package and blow it the up. This beef with Ulysses, this setting, this entire story has nothing to do with anything we as the player have seen, done, or even heard of. Our character themselves doesn't even seem to remember it, yet we're having it all imposed on us like it was all our choice. As I said though, this DLC has a lot of great stuff going on outside of its story. It has loads of scripted set pieces, collapsing buildings, nuclear bombs going off. Its release even had to be delayed by a couple of months, and with so much going on, it's not surprising. Playing through it though, I get the sense sense Obsidian would have wanted even more time, mainly because there are some pretty big bugs here that many other people seem to encounter. The biggest issue I had by far is that Edie here simply didn't work at all. See, at the beginning of the DLC, I free him from this machine, but after that, he just hovers here frozen and doesn't follow me. Now, I'd happily just leave him behind, but unfortunately, I need him to open some locked doors for me. So what do we do? Well, after a little searching, I learned that I could just manually push Edie to every door he needed to unlock, select to wait within the game for a few hours, and then he would activate and unlock the door. But getting him working again like this is only temporary. See, this Edie is supposed to follow you around at all times like the other Edie from the main game. But in this DLC, he's just never around. Every time you need him, you have to wait within the game for a few hours, and only then will he suddenly appear. To be honest, pretty much all of the technical problems I had with this DLC seem to relate to Edie. When you finish the DLC, for example, you get a load of extra slides that explain sort of what happens next in the story. But for me, all of the slides about Edie only played for a few seconds and then cut out. Look, here's an example. What? How was I supposed to read any of that?
Oh, Edie, what are you like? Ow!
Anyway, we eventually make it to Ulysses, and he tells us he's going to destroy the entire Mojave with some extra nuclear bombs that he found here in the Divide. But of course, how does he describe switching on a nuclear bomb?
The Divide giants are awakening.
Yes, man, please throw Ulysses from the dam. Regardless, I say literally one sentence to him, he changes his mind and joins me in the final battle. Why is this? Why is this happening? Honestly though, throughout this DLC, Ulysses has come across a bit of a raving lunatic, so I think this choice may actually be in character. I then have to tell Edie to hack this terminal to stop the nuclear bombs from launching, but doing so will fry Edie's circuits and kill him. And you know, him doing this for me and then instantly exploding would be sad if I hadn't just spent the last 5 hours pushing him across the entire Divide.
Overall then, it's just not that great a DLC. Right, Edie? Edie? Wait. It was you who took my brain. Yeah, you're right, actually. This does look better than before.
And so it was, Up Is Not Jump finished the Fallout New Vegas DLC. And with guidance from Pip-Boy Father Elijah, he was able to take over the entire world. Edie continued to advise Up Is... Edie also found him, and I for one welcome our new YouTuber overlord. May his reign be long and without mercy.
Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video and would like to support the channel, the Absolute Nightmare box set is out and ready to ship now.
And I personally made every video in the almost 4 hours of content on the pen drive, wrote every word of the booklet, and helped design every aspect of the art featured. I have it all here with me and it really is incredibly high quality. So don't delay, buy today. Oh my god, I can't believe I said that. Fallout New Vegas VR is a nightmare. What's that, Benny? Me? Well, I don't see anyone else around here, so you must be talking to me. You see, I've been waiting for this for a long time. I don't see anyone else here. Bam! Ring-a-ding-ding, motherfucker. I really wish I hadn't fallen over. There are plenty of non-VR games that you can force to run in VR. Alien Isolation, for example, runs fantastically well through the Vive, making you feel like you're really in the space station it's set. And if there was anywhere in the entire universe I'd like to be, it's anywhere but here. This place with all this bullshit garbage going down.
This isn't fun at all.
Mr. Hair Dye giving me monster space babies. I do not want this. I do not want this. I definitely don't want this. Undeniably, it's the greatest way to empty your stomach through sheer terror and motion sickness alone, which leads us to, fear and nausea in New Vegas.
I did it.
Seriously though, you can run loads of your favourite games in VR using a program called VorpX. Call of Duty, Skyrim, even Arkham City. Because experiencing VR as a third-person camera in a Batman game is definitely the way to do it.
I'm Batman's camera.
It's also totally possible to run New Vegas through VorpX, and since it's my favourite game since Metroid Prime and Dark Souls,
which you can also run in VR,
I thought I would give this one a go. I wonder why I've never tried to come in here before. I mean, it's a pretty interesting— Oh my god, no, I was not prepared. No, thank you. I'm finally safe.
It also didn't really take me very long at all to get New Vegas working on the Vive. It makes you wonder, did Bethesda actually do...
And it does work. New Vegas can be displayed in full 3D in the Vive, and it looks no less convincing than Skyrim, which I enjoy immensely. Oh, for f***'s sake. I mean, I had it going before lunch on the day I started.
You have an interest in this, whether you like it or not.
Unfortunately, you can't use your own hands to aim weapons or grab stuff like you can in Fallout 4 or Skyrim VR. So you can't shove that knife right into Benny's fat face, as I've demonstrated here using a disturbingly close lookalike in Fallout 4. But New Vegas is an infinitely better game, so it's still loads of fun to explore the Mojave in glorious 3D. Trudy, I think something more important is going on over there. Oh, now this is just silly. However, the methods needed to make this game work to its full potential
my eyes
aren't exactly common knowledge, so guides on how to do it are a little inconsistent. One of the most well-written and comprehensive guides is this one on the Oculus Reddit, which clearly explains that Vorpex is a $40 app that makes non-VR games work in VR.
It's gonna be a long day.
You have to wait 48 hours for a request. Oh, for fuck! There we go. Got it. Great. Yep. Thanks. Amazing. Then you finally walk out, eyes squinting from the amazing world you're ready to experience in right. Okay. Thanks. Got it. Yup. Good. Great. Amazing! And that's it mostly. Once you have Vorpex on your computer, all you need to do is run New Vegas and it automatically displays it all in VR.
Considering that this is all I really needed to do to get New Vegas working on the Vive, it's crazy to think how much Bethesda really charged for Fallout 4 VR. I mean, is it really as simple for them as just flipping a switch?
However, we aren't quite done yet. To get it running properly, you're going to need to be able to mess around with the game's settings while you play. So it recommends you have a wireless Xbox controller and a wireless mouse handy at all times. So by the time you're ready to actually start tweaking this, you've got your keyboard, Xbox controller, wireless mouse, and Vive controllers all around you, and try grabbing the specific one you need with the Vive taped over your eyes. I started with the default Vorpex settings, and although it ran New Vegas in 3D, it was more like looking at the Mojave through a magnifying glass, while underwater, and the water's actually cream, and the Mojave is somehow made of headaches. Why do the clouds move when I do? Damn you, clouds. These settings really were like looking at the game world through a magnifying glass. The game sort of balloons and shrinks as you move your head. Yeah, you show him, Mario. It was like the radial image you see when you're looking at raw Vive footage was still making its way to my poor brain.
You again.
So I tried importing a VorpX profile someone else set up specifically for this game. Basically, there are loads of settings you can change within VorpX to make the 3D and the way the world moves around you as close as possible to how it would look in real life. Using this profile meant someone else had already gone through this nightmare and worked out the best settings for me. Trying this removed the ballooning effect. But when talking to people in conversations, it was like talking to someone through a pair of binoculars that exclusively transfer light into nauseating pain.
We have such sights to show you.
It just made all conversations flail around uncontrollably when I moved my head. I can't show you exactly how this looked, but basically it was like this. Okay, I'll join you if you just sit still. And in the end, it just made me feel sick, so I turned this profile off. This fixed the pain-filled binocular issue, but now when I talk to people, it just zoomed in so close you could only see the whites of their invariably dead eyes staring back into your soul.
But sometimes they get ornery, just like my grandkids.
I know, Lily. I know. That didn't even nearly kill her, what was I thinking? Oh, and very quickly, I bet you're wondering what that is. Well, I'm proud to say Vorpex is the only program I've ever used that on top of having no trial option, after you pay the full price for the software, you still have an irremovable watermark on the screen at all times. So here, Vorpex, I award you the Arseholes of Gaming Award. No EA, you can keep yours too. Oh, and microtransactions, one for you too. I guess you all Fallout win, but I don't know, man, something still isn't quite right here. I mean, have my arms always been over there? I'm piling on the problems a little fast here, so let's back off and explain in more detail the specific issues I had when setting this up and how I actually overcame them. You again! Because the Vive is able to fill our entire vision with the game world, the way it behaves is very important. If the world in here behaves in a way that doesn't match out here, it can cause us some serious nausea. I mean, this is totally legit. Now, things are about to get a little technical, so I brought someone in who can explain this stuff a bit better than me.
What we see when we look into the Vive is normally two screens, one for each eye. These two images are very slightly different, just like how the images our left and right eyes see in real life are slightly different, because, you know, they see the world from different places. The Vive screens mimic this natural difference in perspective for each eye, which is what makes us see the game in 3D. Now, this is an incredibly specific thing. Our brains aren't f***ing stupid. I mean, yours is a little, but that's okay. Because Vorpex hasn't been designed with New Vegas exclusively in mind, the software needs a fair bit of tweaking to display this just right. No, it's nothing like this at all. What are you doing? Basically, without this very specific tweaking, when you turn your head to the left, instead of everything you see moving to the right in a sort of straight line, it appears that the world also rotates in the x-axis as you turn, a little like what you can see on screen now. This does not feel good to your brain. You again! Now this may sound like it will be very difficult to correct, but don't worry, this program now comes with Direct VR. I am morally against what is about to be done to New Vegas, so I refuse to discuss this any further.
When you activate Direct VR, it automatically alters Vorpex's settings to make the game world run just like real life. So not only does it now track your position at all times, so when you move, your arms don't end up on the other side of the map without you, but it also cleverly alters your field of view and other stuff, so that the world finally behaves exactly like it does in real life. Just another day in England, stopping it from causing you any nausea at all. So we'll run this. Yep. Good. Amazing. And f*** it, we'll try again. Okay. Yep. Good. Wonderful! Like all good software that costs you money, it gives you absolutely f***able explanation as to why this always fails, but fortunately there are reams of forum pages full of people ready to tell you how it works perfectly for them. Finally, I found disabling my antivirus and trying 10 times inside a building so my PC wasn't under any stress worked perfectly. The game now behaves as you would expect when you move through it and when you turn your head. It's literally like being inside New Vegas. The illusion is complete! I wanted to look into the exact reasons why such a quick change worked so well, and after much searching I found someone who very kindly explained that this is mostly due to asynchronous space warp.
Asynchronous space warp. Asynchronous space warp!
Running DirectVR also caused the game to start being, to use the technical term, jittery as fuck. And of course everyone else is Jesus reincarnated, so didn't experience this problem at all. But the jitteriness did actually kind of level out after a few minutes and the game then ran okay. However, this then caused an issue that meant when I aimed through the sights, my head was no longer positioned in the right place within the game, so the sights no longer lined up where they were supposed to, but f*** that, who needs accuracy after spending an hour setting up their sneak sniper build? You can fix this by turning off true iron sights, which means you use the dot in the center of the screen instead of the iron sights when you aim, totally ruining a large portion of the immersion, but hey, problem solved. Also, now that I've run DirectVR, I wonder what happens when I talk to people. Oh, for f***'s sake, it's back again! Pro tip, don't try and set this up after you've had lunch.
Oh, why did I eat so much human flesh?
If you think back, you may remember a tiny little gripe I had about Fallout 4's flashing menus. To be fair, it is mainly when you're in any kind of menu, like using the Pip-Boy, the start menus, looting items, hacking minigames, or just using lockpicks. So it happens all the f***ing time. When entering a conversation or any one of those menus I just mentioned, the game zooms in like you're trying to use the Pip-Boy to tell the time, but you're partially blind.
You cannot fast travel when enemies are nearby.
Now, Smarty Pantsers out there will suggest increasing the field of view exclusively for the Pip-Boy and within conversation, so this zoom effect will be minimized. You can do this by using a mod or by altering the game's INI settings. But no, it doesn't work. But do feel free to let me know in the comments all the other ways I'm a total face. What you can do though is whenever you enter a conversation or menu, press the middle mouse wheel and this will enter cinema mode. Oh yeah, now I've always wanted to watch this movie like this. Oh my god, I can see why they cut this! All this really means is you see the game more like you're sitting in a movie theater with New Vegas running on an enormous screen in front of you. As a result, this fixes all the zooming issues with one click and is more like you're watching Fallout New Vegas, the movie.
Take it! Make it happen!
Now, taking your hands off the controller to click a mouse wheel every 15 seconds is a little immersion breaking. So what you can do is map the Bring Up Pip-Boy button to also correspond with a middle mouse click. This will automatically activate the cinema mode whenever you use the Pip-Boy, avoiding this.
You take a sip from your trusty Vault 13 canteen.
To do this, you first activate Steam's Big Picture mode by clicking here. Clicking here. There, map this and this together, done! There are a few other things you can do to make the game run a little smoother, and once you do, New Vegas VR still manages to be a little better than Fallout 4 VR was on its day one launch.
So once again, New Vegas does everything better than a game Todd Howard was involved with. And it's no surprise really. Did you hear that?
Play a lot of sports games. I play racing games.
The demon is defeated. Before starting this video, I'd fortunately already spent the required 100 hours carefully and meticulously modding New Vegas, a game that's basically held together with paper clips and rubber bands, to the point where it was stable and almost never crashed. Look at that picture of elegance, that cornucopia of order, that plethora. I don't recommend using Mod Organizer. It doesn't always play well with VorpX. I used Nexus Mod Manager.
Oh no!
Using Nexus Mod Manager is like disarming a quantum bomb that takes 15 hours to defuse, and if you sneeze, it's all over and the collective universe collapses around you. No, I'm not doing it. Sure, Fallout 4 dismantled one of the greatest single-player RPG choice-based intellectual properties of all time by degenerating it into a system where your character's personality has absolutely no effect whatsoever on their interactions within the game world. But you don't have to use menus to loot boxes anymore, so it basically levels out, right? Adding this mod means when looting in New Vegas VR, you don't have to open a separate menu anymore. This means when looting, you don't have to select the container, enter cinema mode, leave the container, and close cinema mode all in one go using separate commands. So it's as fucking compulsory as avoiding Sloan after putting every skill point into barter. You know, I really think we can strike a deal here. There, I knew they'd love this. New Vegas is about as smooth as me at a speed dating event.
This is Marjorie.
And as I've explained, VR games need to be as close as possible to real life, meaning stutters can really affect the experience. Like if you were walking through a room and this started happening, it would hardly feel fantastic.
Kill me.
Not only does this mod fix stutters as you would expect, but you can also lock your frame rate at a lower value to prevent things from jumping about. I gotta say, it's very sad locking a game at 45 FPS when the Vive runs at 90. It's like running Pong through the HAL 9000. This is beneath me, Dave. Now I know what you're thinking. If I just blanket port an unsupported game to VR, where do the game overlays like health, compass, messages, and action points go? Answer, wherever they f***ing want, unfocused as hell and scattered to the cosmic winds. OHUD is a mod by Gopher that allows you to basically do everything you can imagine to the menus. You can move each element individually, remove the HUD totally, have the messages fade away over time, add a clock, take the compass out for dinner.
You haven't touched your ravioli.
With this mod, you can get the HUD to behave like it does in Skyrim VR and Fallout 4 VR. In those games, your health appears whenever you're hurt and then slowly disappears over time, so you can keep an eye on it without it making you go cross-eyed. So those are most of the mods you'll need to stop the immersion-breaking aspects of the game. You know, the more I talk about this, the more I realise that Bethesda may have actually done more work than I give them credit for when it came to porting Fallout 4 into VR. Making it so the game can run in 3D on the Vive, that seems fairly straightforward. But porting the moving arms, scaling your arms, the VAT system, allowing the guns to fire from wherever your hands are, fine-tuning the menus, the locomotion, the way the world moves when you turn your head, it might not be as easy as I thirst for. Sure, $60 was way too much for a game.
But to be perfectly honest, I'm wondering if it was all worth it. All that time and energy and the game still isn't a true VR experience. I mean, from where you're sitting, it must seem like this was all a complete waste of time. The truth is, the game was rigged from the start, like he says it in the game as well. You know?
Fallout 4 VR is an absolute nightmare. Oh hey, bowling balls, so I can pick these up now with my hands and throw them down the lane. Oh, for f***'s sake! Fallout 4 VR is a really innovative game. I especially like that you start off the game as a sink. It's so immersive because you already have a giant tube sticking out your face. They're really front runners with this one. Oh, there we go. Now I'm a person. Really lost in things this time. The release of Fallout 4 VR is legitimately, and I'm not saying this to be dramatic, one of the biggest travesties in all of gaming history. Sure, ET for the Atari 2600 or the Atari 2600 decimated the video game industry, sending the entire medium into an ice age for 2 years, but did it have this? What the fuck? Before you all castrate me with your cruel and piercing words, I love Fallout 4 VR. I really do. It has quickly become one of my favourite games, and in many ways is much, much better than the original game. I honestly commend Bethesda for the ingenuity of this port and the number of fun and interesting ideas they've managed to work into the game. I really don't think I've ever seen a game that's this immersive and this enjoyable to play. When it f***ing works! But it doesn't always work, does it, Bethesda? Most of the time it doesn't. You just couldn't let our dreams come true. The best way to explain all this is to do a day-by-day analysis of what happened after the game's release and go over all the issues the game had each day. And then I'll do a separate video next time on everything that made it really f***ing good.
Fallout 4 VR looked terrible when it was released. This is because for some ungodly reason, the Vive was being forced to run Fallout at the same resolution as my computer monitor, which is needless to say going to be lower than the Vive because it isn't 600 f***ing pounds. So everyone who was playing Fallout 4 VR on launch day, which is f***ing everyone, was basically playing the game on much too lower resolution for the game to actually be enjoyed. I found a forum post which attempted to explain why Bethesda may have accidentally released Fallout 4 VR with this fault. It's ridiculous that something like this slipped through the cracks. The developers and testers must have been using 4K monitors, so they never had the issue. This just means if those testing the game did indeed have monitors with super high resolutions, the headsets they were using to test the game would be using their high monitor resolutions, and this problem would have been much less obvious. And at first I thought that can't be the reason they released the game with this problem. But then what's the alternative here? We're saying that Bethesda released a port of one of the biggest games of the decade, a flagship series that represents what they as a company are capable of, without at least attempting to run it on isolated computers with average specifications to determine what impact that would have on the functionality of their game. Oh no, that's what they did, isn't it? I mean, this game is $60 and it categorically didn't work upon release. So after paying $60, people that knew enough about both computers and Fallout 4 had to go through this series of fixes to then finally determine the game was ignoring all of the local Steam settings, and what you actually had to do, amongst a few other changes, was go into your NVIDIA configuration and manually raise your computer's DSR factor, effectively allowing your Vive to run the game at a higher resolution. So after just one day, Bethesda released a beta of the game that totally fixed all the graphical issues and the game was finally playable. It really does highlight how badly they f***ed up if they could fix it that quickly. The Wasteland it's vast, it's intricate, it's frightening, it's inspiring, it's funny, and most importantly, it's fun. But you saw the title of this video, right? I promise I will gush this game to death in my next video and give it a fair, proper analysis. Almost like a real games journalist. And I will explain to you in detail all the reasons why I think this game is indeed the bomb. But for now, the first 30 minutes of Fallout 4 VR is an absolute goddamn f***ing unacceptable nightmare. Fallout 4 sold a bazillion million copies in a single day. There needs to be an option to skip this shit. No one pays $60 to be talked at for half an hour like this.
Vault 111. Go away.
This is not fun. When this is possibly the most fun I've ever had playing a video game. Why the f*** am I talking to you for so long? A really important part of what I'm saying here is that once you actually get to the real game where you have guns and shit, the major thing standing in the way of your immediate enjoyment of the game is its controls. The controls in this game are nothing short of f***ing exceptional. It's like learning how to pogo. It's hard, but once you do, bam. But it isn't f***ing easy, like pogoing. Bam. The controls take quite a lot of time to get good at. The menu navigation and favorited items stuff involves scrolling with touchpads, effectively giving your right-hand controller over 20 buttons. I don't really know many game systems that use 2 touchpad controllers at the same time to such an extent, so generally we're quite unfamiliar to it, so it will take a while to master. But once you get it, you can scroll through menus like in the Elder Scrolls. What? But in the first half an hour, the controls are f***ing disabled because you don't have f***ing guns or the Pip-Boy, so you play this 30-long f***ing minute opening for the upteenth f***ing time, spending most of it doing this.
Just look at that sky out there.
Then get lumbered with totally new controls mixed in with f***ing touchscreen controls that take another hour to master, so you still don't get to play the game seamlessly until an hour and a half in. And if you weren't on the beta yet, everyone looks like Mr. f***ing Blobby and you can hardly see anything as the 3D is like looking through a foggy window. If people could have at least skipped the opening if they played the game, the first few hours of the game would have been much more interesting. So I travelled east out of the vault. Oh my god. And as night fell, I looked up and noticed the developers somehow set it so the stars were rendering in front of the clouds, because why the f not? It's a 50-50 shot. Shortly after this, my guns then started breaking into pieces, because why the f not? Part of the time, the reload animations broke the guns in half, which I must say is very entertaining. This should not be happening. And the rest of the time, the guns were just in pieces and would not work or reload at all, so I had to start the game again from the vault. Thanks, guys. Then once I was back to where I was, I decided to jump in some nearby water and have a look around. And once I left the water, the swim sound just never stopped playing. So I had to reload the game back to the vault again. Thanks, guys. I then explored the Skylane Flight 1981 and the General Atomics Galleria and had some of the most fun and absorbing video game experiences of my life, so we'll talk about that next time. I then found a locked box at Skylane, which taught me that the lockpicking minigames sometimes render themselves behind walls, making the task a little less than enjoyable. Again, guys, this in front or behind thing is really throwing you all off. And what made it especially difficult is when the background flickers the out at the same time you're trying to do a lockpicking minigame. And this is where we reach the game's real immersion vacuum, the succubus of fun, the veritable chupacabra of entertainment. The rooms flash constantly, all the time, all the f***ing time. To be fair, it is mainly when you're in any kind of menu, like using the Pip-Boy, the start menus, looting items, hacking minigames, or just using lockpicks. So it happens all the f***ing time. You can obviously see it's a problem here, but in VR, it's an absolute goddamn nightmare. You see, the VR in Fallout 4 is so good, you forget you're in your house. Once the headset is on your head, you're teleported immediately into the game. You feel like you are in these rooms. So if you were just chilling out in a room in your house and the walls started freaking out, you'd be pretty f***ing put out, to say the least. It's the same in VR. It completely ruins the immersion and is a little bit f***ing terrifying. Out of everything, Bethesda, fix this. It's shitty. When you pick up notes or information in the game, they don't have writing on, so you have to reopen the Pip-Boy to read them, which is particularly difficult as notes don't have their own subsections in the menus. When the lockpicking actually works, it runs like it's on f***ing crack. If you use the teleport function to move around, you can actually teleport through windows of rooms that you shouldn't be able to enter. Your controllers in the game blend with any water effects in front of them. Even past the beta, all the guns and characters in the game are naturally very blurry, so you have to apply several console codes as default in the game's INI files to correct it, etc., etc., etc. Honestly though, all the stuff I'm complaining about may make it seem like this game is really bad. And yes, it is definitely unacceptable to release a game in this state. But the overall quality of the 3D environments, the movement, the controls, the gameplay, the gunplay, when it f***ing works, are all absolutely stellar. And if you enjoy the visual style and attention to detail that Bethesda put into their games, experiencing this in 3D, it's a whole nother story.
If that's what you want.
Okay, here we go. Here's my chance to redeem myself. I'm gonna take this, I'm just gonna hit one bowling pin. Just the one, that's all I wanna get. Okay, so here we go. Yes, 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 come on, yes. Come on, here we go. Yes, yes, yeah! Oh, fuck! Fallout 4 VR is not an absolute nightmare. So I'll go over there and, oh, brilliant work again, Bethesda, great. Hey there, little guy, are you trapped in the ground? Maybe I can help. Oh, not again! Yes, I did it! Oh, for f***'s sake! Lord knows Fallout 4 VR has some problems, and it does have some problems. Why does this keep happening? But behind all of this is some very genuine innovation that gives Fallout 4 VR its own feel, its own flavor, its own recipe for success. It needs more pepper. And for a game that's half broken, I didn't really like in the first place, and I've already spent over 100,000 hours playing, I'd say that's quite a f***ing achievement. But look, talking about all the reasons a game is good is less interesting than hearing someone complain about it. You see, your brain is programmed to more readily pick up, listen, and remember negativity. It's what got us where we are today, and marks why we're such resentful f***heads. So, is making a video about why this game is so great actually a good idea? Of me. Well, I could complain about one. For a game with so much locomotion, Fallout 4 VR plays quite effortlessly. Standing in the middle of a room waving your arms about with a box strapped to your head that does nothing but constantly flash lights into your face while gravity slowly wears you down is understandably a little tiring. But playing this game with the literal world flying past and spinning around you doesn't actually make you that sick. Not like this shit. So we have this huge open world game you can realistically play all the way through without your neck apparently snapping off. And do you know what they did with this absolutely wondrous achievement? Come here. Closer. No, closer. They released Fallout 4 VR without scope functionality, and it's such a f***ing momentary lapse in reasoning, I'm half expecting Pink Floyd to turn up and try and sue somebody. What? They did release the game so you can still attach scopes to your gun, but like the masochists they are, they didn't work in the slightest, so you can't use them to zoom in and kill enemies, so the scopes just sit there teasing you. I am gonna talk about the good stuff soon, I swear. It's all well and good in the open parts of the game before you reach any towns and cities. There isn't much cover, and in the forests, there's so much cover you can just sneak through and go power fist on that ass. Hello, darkness, my old friend. But once you reach the city, everyone is behind cover, and that cover is behind walls. So, oh, I better just pull out my old trusty sniper rifle. Oh, wait. So you rock up, pissing bullets away like a diabetic with a pack of Skittles. These guns are not for shooting far away things, which is quite an odd thing to say about a gun, but you need a scope, damn it. You don't bring a handgun to a wine tasting, and you don't
bring one here either. I'm not Bullseye. What is going on in this movie? So imagine the game has been out for over a month and this entire area, which is the most substantial part of the game I might add, is totally off limits even though this was a full price game and it took 2 months for them to fix this. Oh my. And I know many of you are thinking, oh, he's just bad at shooting. And yes, this isn't fucking Halo, people. We are actually aiming these guns. And if you haven't noticed because you've had several brain hemorrhages, I'm exceptionally British. And I'm about as good with an actual gun as I am with a mild breeze. I've called for help, but I don't think anyone's coming. The game has no crosshairs and aiming down iron sights is not the same as Call of Duty because contrary to popular belief, I am not steady arms McNever moves like soapy water over there. And yes, you can get good with the handguns and the rifles and use them to snipe people, sort of. But it's a very bad solution to a very simple problem that we should not be having. Large sections of Fallout 4 were basically built around the fact that you could have scopes, and to remove them and still release it as a full game shows such an alarming lack of awareness on the part of the developers for what Fallout 4 is as an experience. Makes you wonder what the hell is going on. Look, I make fun of them for being inept, but I don't think it's that at all. I think they ran out of time and didn't have enough resources to get everything done. As well as that, this is all very new technology. It is probably really difficult to add shit like this on the fly. So what I take from this is we all need to slow down and take on the massively overquoted words from the human equivalent of Taoism that is Shigeru Miyamoto. A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. He probably said that in Japanese. Well, that was all well and good before we started updating a game non-stop every day for 2 years to make it passable. So there you go, we have scopes now, so it's all wasted breath anyway. All is forgiven, but I clearly haven't forgotten. Or forgiven, actually. The most striking thing about Fallout 4 VR is how well designed the shooting mechanics are. To put it simply, it works really well and is worryingly enjoyable. The aiming is pretty much flawless. And the 3D is so well implemented you can properly admire the genuinely beautiful craftsmanship and design of the weapons in this game. Look, the Fallout series has absolutely amazing art design thanks majoritively to the artists of the original game, namely Leonard Boyarsky and his art team. What the fuck? And to be able to actually hold these awesome weapons and have them work so well is why this game survives so many of its flaws. This is arguably the most important part they needed to get right, and to be honest, they absolutely nailed it. Shoot, shoot. A lot of people also complain about having no hands, but this isn't something I notice. There are already really good VR games out, like Arizona Sunshine, where you have hands. But for in-game hands to work in VR, they generally have to move independently from you anyway when you do things like reload and perform certain actions. So having them in the game doesn't really help the immersion at all. And to be honest, I really like watching how the guns behave in Fallout 4 with nothing in the way. Seeing how they work and reload is honestly a little mesmerizing to me. VATS is hands down
Can I go up now?
the most impressive thing Bethesda have achieved in this port. The team here have made something truly special.
Look, I don't write these jokes, they just keep happening.
And it's surprisingly balanced in a game with a compulsory invincibility mode. VATS here could stand as a benchmark for how slow motion VR gameplay could be integrated into RPGs. It's that good. In previous games, VATS was basically just a pause button that gave you some options of what you could do. And this was a good interpretation of turn-based combat. But in VR, this mechanic's now controlled by where you yourself are aiming. So by slowing down time, it gives you more of a chance to center your aim on the target, which, as I've discussed, when the target is a little further away is... this is so difficult. Fallout 4, one way or another, focuses way more on action-based gameplay than strategic role-playing, and VATS has been altered in Fallout 4 VR to match this core gameplay on offer, rather than just being an unrevised carbon copy Klingon from earlier iterations of the series. It's a really nice change to have made, and fits the new gameplay exceptionally well. Whew, we got very analytical there. Here's me falling from the highest point in the map to make up for it. Whoa, oh, this isn't so bad. What the fuck? So I spawned Rick and Morty, Bob Ross and Gordon Ramsay and we're all hanging out in VR. I have spent literally thousands of hours looking at these faces while making machinima, and seeing them in full life 3D is honestly a little emotional.
That's impossible to reach. I'm not a magician, you know?
I hate all of you! Playing the original Fallouts has taught me that Bethesda gone pinched every aspect of the visual style they used for Fallout 3 and onwards. Fallout 3, 4, and New Vegas, God bless its divine soul, are near identical first-person visual recreations of the original games. I mean, they're all beautiful.
stylistically speaking. And I'd say this is a huge contributor to the success of these games. The graphics of 4 were a little aged even on release, but the style was still there, and I'm sure many people still find this very appealing. Pretty pictures. Bethesda put a lot of effort into the finer details of the visuals of Fallout 4, but you honestly don't really notice them in the original game. I mean, look up in the vault in VR, and it's an absolute madhouse of steam, pipes, and wires, and they're all individually rendered. Adding this many separate meshes to the ceilings of a building somewhere that no one's gonna look out or notice is a lot of unnecessary work, which probably should have been spent on other things. But in VR, you are so much more receptive to what is going on around you because, you know, you're actually there. Oh, for fuck! So you start to notice these details all over the game world, and they really do make many of the locations so much more impressive and interesting to explore. Oh, I need to stop installing so many mods. I mean, this is just, what the f is that? It's actually really interesting that all this effort is finally having some genuine impact over 2 years after the game was released. The animations in Fallout 4 also get a bit of a bum rep. I mean, they do look f***ing awful most of the time, let's be fair. But just like in the Vault in VR, you can't help but be enthralled at the genuine attention to detail Bethesda have applied to a good portion of their characters and animations. Oh, hello there. Oh my god! Straight up, Mr. Handies look amazing. When they're around, Fallout 4 VR suddenly feels like it's become a simulation to test robot designs before you build them. I'm really sorry. As an NPC, they are made up of so many separate, intricate moving parts, it just adds to the bafflement that you'd let this monstrosity with a saw as big as my head near a f***ing baby. Darling, the abomination that's looking after our baby is f***ing blowing up again. So now the cutscene where you watch all the Mr. Handies explode is like watching years of detailed and intricate work burn to the ground before your inadequate eyes. Like watching a flower die or when my coffee comes out too weak. What have I done? The same can be said of the vault door unlocking, the Mr. Handy tower opening, meeting the mechanists for the first time. Oh, that's right, I don't have any footage of that because the DLCs aren't supported in VR because f the consumer. The developers of Fallout 4 seem to favor this idea of applying numerous moving parts at once to initiate and signal an event, even when opening a f***ing door. This is a reasonably appealing thing to watch in 2D, but generally its complexity is lost a little because you aren't really able to see it that closely. In VR, you are so much more receptive to these animations. They come to life in a pretty spectacular way. Please don't hurt me! And just act as a little sprinkling of joy and immersion to many of the locations and encounters you have. I mean, look at this, it's f***ing great. The default Pip-Boy no longer pauses the game when you want to change weapons or armor. What a f***ing brilliant idea! Why is this not always an option? I think this is honestly genius. In Fallout 1 and 2, swapping weapons in a fight was a serious disadvantage. It would basically cost you a turn if you didn't plan it correctly. Imagine if Reservoir Dogs suddenly paused for a second and Mr. White ended up holding a missile launcher. That'd have f***ed the scene up a little, wouldn't it? Where'd you get that, Steve Buscemi would say, who'd somehow been shot in the face in a different movie. Imagine wanting to change a weapon in Fallout 4 if the game didn't pause. You'd need to be quick and choose at the right moment, or run into cover ready to make your decision. This small change would totally alter a huge part of the game and make the combat situations, which there are a lot of, so much more tense and strategic. But nah, that would make the game challenging, which is somehow a bad thing. If you aren't fighting in Fallout 4, you're exploring. So it stands to reason that this needs to work really well in VR too. It does. It's so good in VR, it works so well. There is so much stuff in this game. I mean, here's a random list of items in the game to give you an idea of the f***ing insane degree they've jammed shit into it. There are beer bottles, baseballs, beakers, paintbrushes, toothbrushes, hairbrushes, pint glasses, drinking glasses, shot glasses, eyeglasses, cork, copper, concrete cloth, beryllium f***ing agitators, gnomes, gears, globes, glass, gold, swan boat fragments. I mean, just skulls alone. Brahmin skulls, Kappa skulls, skull cap bones, skull faceplate, skull fragment. God, these guys like skulls. Upper skull, human skull, and you get the idea. I wonder if it's just me, but I totally miss collecting the bobbleheads all the time. Or a really cool weapon will be just lying on a desk and I'll blindly wander past and start hoarding all the fans instead. Because in this game, screws have all the economical worth of a f***ing human being.
Father, what's going on?
Not now, Sean, there are screws here, I can smell them. What I mean to say is exploring in this game is quite an involved task because every room has so much in it. You spend half the game time looking through shelves deciding whether or not you really can fit in another typewriter. Literally discarding f***ing missile launchers to make room for more pepper mills. I need them, really. In VR, and I seriously mean this, you miss nothing, and exploring a room takes literally no time at all because you're actually in that room. You see, in real life, if you were to walk into a really cluttered room but there was a f***ing gun in the corner, you're gonna probably take note. And it's the same here. And because you can actually reach out and grab the things yourself, you can rummage through a room and steal stuff faster than a kleptomaniac on speed. I'm just gonna see if I can grab an item through a wall. So I put my arm through. What the f is happening? It may seem like a minor point, but you spend a lot of time in this game looking through rooms, and it works exponentially better in VR, and it really smoothens out this portion of the gameplay. I'm going to try and push these two items together as well. I'm not sure about this one at all, because generally I'm quite prone to getting motion sickness. Whoa, okay. Basically, you could say if there was a lead belly perk in real life, I certainly didn't take it. What the f am I talking about? Somebody touched my spaghetti! When I first started playing Elite Dangerous, it made me sick. Like my stomach itself was turning the opposite way to the ship. Oh, I wonder what would happen if I threw up while wearing this helmet. By the time the video was done, I could literally do this and feel almost nothing. Can I stop doing this? I have a sneaking suspicion that you can develop sea legs, but for VR. VR legs. Vlegs. Flag! There's a VR horror game called The Bellows, and whilst looking like a GameCube game and being the scariest horror experience of my life, it makes you feel like the nausea center of your brain is being massaged with f***ing rocks. I mean, it's utterly unbearable. And I thought this was just how smooth locomotion would be in VR, but in Fallout 4 VR, the feeling is so drastically minimal. It generally seems to be a mutual feeling amongst the community that VR locomotion makes people sick, but not Fallout 4 VR. I imagine what Bethesda did here was scale the world around you so it's somehow more open, and as a result feels like there's less around you at any one time. Because the more you can minimize the amount of objects that move around you while you do, the better it is for sickness. I also think they've really cleverly fine-tuned the controls. You see, you don't move at all based on where your head is pointing in this game. It's all carefully controlled with the touchpad and the controller, so you're much less likely to wobble about, which keeps the world movement around you minimal. Oh, good. What Bethesda are great at is sound, visual style, and size. Even today, I feel like Skyrim continues to be beautiful, on the most part. But in Fallout 4, I feel like a little bit too much effort was applied to these three characteristics, and as a result, the game has suffered in substance. Mainly in terms of the writing and the story.
This truly is a wonderful place, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean... Oh god. Ah! Okay, maybe it's for the best I killed him? Ew. And this may be an unpopular opinion, but generally I feel people do prefer the story in New Vegas and Fallout 3. Saying that, is Fallout 4 a horror game? I mean, seriously, I can't work this out. Much of the game is designed like one, with spooky music and dark corridors.
Spooky, scary skeleton.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not editing this together. This is not funny.
We're so sorry, skeletons. You're so misunderstood.
No, I'm not doing it next. But the effect of this isn't complete here, because you can save at any time, so there's no risk to you, and you are ultimately death incarnate anyway. Partly to blame is how fine-tuned the combat mechanics in the vanilla game are. You can aim and kill stuff way too effectively to feel any threat from the enemies. And that's right, I'm saying the combat mechanics in Fallout 4 are too good. And they are. People are gonna kill me. In VR though, it all comes alive, and I had no idea how amazing most of the sound design in this game is, but it's spectacular. That combined with the obvious immersion and the fact that you yourself have to swiftly aim at this living proof that there is no God before it rips your face off is all the more intense and allows the many horror aspects of the game to take over properly. And this all leads me on to a success that also results in the game's main failure. Yeah, that's some convoluted shit. There's a graveyard near where you start, with a beacon-like light that draws you in. You slowly tread through a dark forest to get there, the eerie music building as you get closer. The graves have flowers, skeletons, empty cribs. You slowly explore the graveyard, becoming more and more certain that you're being watched. You enter a crypt with a cult-like shrine glowing in the center. Suddenly behind you, you hear footsteps. You swivel around and unload 2 shells into the face of an unsuspecting raider returning to his shrine. Now in VR, that was really cool. That's the good stuff. But that was all that happened. There was nothing to discover here, nowhere to go, no one to talk to, and nothing to learn. The reason for this is Fallout 4 is so big, all its experiences have been spread out across the map in different forms. But in VR, you need to take breaks every few hours before your neck snaps. So you've just spent half the time you have in this play session looking around this amazing, terrifying, immersive place, and there's nothing substantial here.
Nice.
Even though this place is cool, the overall effect ends up being disappointment because you're so invested in this area, you expect to find something big. What are you doing up there? The main point I'm trying to make here is that as a port, Fallout 4 VR may be an absolute mess, but is filled with enough ingenuity and exceptional good points that it's still a fantastic experience. However, even if all its problems were fixed, at its core, this outrageously open-ended, spread-out gameplay jars a little with VR as a medium. Spreading things out this much, for me, only acts to deter the fun I'm already having, and am ready to have. But this isn't the fault of Bethesda. It's because Fallout 4 isn't a VR game. And it can't be, because that's not how it was made. In Fallout 4, I would agonize about whether or not I should leave the house with a missile launcher or a flamethrower. I would do this like I was deciding whether to leave the house with a coat or not. Well, it might rain, but I don't want to get too hot. But it's not that cloudy right now. But I am going to be out for ages. F it, I'll take the nuke. Whee! This is because inventory management is a big part of Fallout 4. But you know what isn't fun in VR? Inventory management. You do not want to spend your precious 2 hours of game time deciding whether or not you should risk taking more lunch boxes out with you. It just isn't worth it. Turn off the weight limit. Go on. Come on. There we go. Doesn't that feel better? I'm finally free! A good trade-off here is to stop using fast travel. That way you can take what you like with you, but you have to explore the game organically, because there's nothing more immersive than blacking out for 60 seconds, watching a loading screen, and then appearing in a different zip code, is there? Also, VATS is loads of fun to put points into agility and perception so you can use it more if you like. If you want, you know.
It's your choice. There's no real recipe.
Oh, they all hit my teeth.
Fallout 76 is an absolute nightmare.
And here they are, the majestic dogs of West Virginia. Sleep well, old friends. Oh, they've come back for me! It's November, and you know what that means? It's Christmas, apparently, and you know what that means? We're gonna review a Fallout game.
Fallout.
A series of games so appealing, most people don't need to look at the series as a whole to appreciate a single game. In fact, Fallout 3 is so approachable, so inherently enjoyable. It speaks to that part of us deep down that longs for the bombs to finally drop and finish us all off. Oh, yeah. When will this luxury end? When people do decide to finally try the old games, which are about as friendly as a man with no eyes, they immediately do this. It's a game franchise so infamous, all you have to do is mention when it's coming out and everyone takes to the internet to complain about it even though it isn't f***ing out yet. But what is it that makes this game franchise so popular? And why does everybody love it so much, or used to love it until Fallout 4 came out and took a questline from the previous game and stretched it over a 40-hour storyline? That's right, I'm onto you, Bethesda!
Hey, look, I don't want to deal with that.
No, that's a magic marker. What's wrong with you? Who remembers Pickle Rick? What about when I made this?
Big reveal, I'm a pickle.
Me, what was I thinking? As a character and a plot device, Pickle Rick wasn't inherently a bad idea. Everyone hates him now, yes, but I think that's mainly because he was teased early on with a catchphrase everyone very quickly got sick of. I'm Pickle Rick. My problem with his early reveal is that it partially ruined the related episode for many people as they just assumed Pickle Rick was simply a short joke in a larger plot. As a marketing tool, it was admittedly brilliant, but incredibly flawed. It got us talking about the show at the cost of making us hate pickles. Who would have thought pickles could burn? Or we can talk to Bethesda, the literal Leonardo da Vinci of marketing. We're gonna need to talk about what literal means. Oh. Do you see what I mean? Is it clear anymore? Do you need to make it any clearer? I mean, sure, they stole the whole fade out to destroyed city from old technology from Fallout 1 like they did with every other Fallout themed asset that came before 3, but they knew to steal it. It just seems like they're running out of stuff to steal. Todd, that stuff is mine.
For me right now, I'm still a kid in a candy store.
And that leads us to Fallout 76. The marketing for this game is so sublime, it's almost unfair. I can feel the wallet being sucked out of my pocket as we speak. Okay, so just keep pulling, like, just pull it, like, just for fun. I honestly believe they chose to use this song in their final trailer and then built the rest of the game around it. Also, have you noticed that 100 different YouTubers have posted a video complaining about a game that wasn't out yet using the exact same thumbnail as each other whilst also complaining that Fallout 76 isn't original? So learning from the Pickle Rick fiasco, I went into this game knowing absolutely nothing about it other than the fact that it's entirely online. Honestly, it seems like everyone else has a f***ing degree in this game, a master's in PvP mechanics, a PhD in water boiling. You get the idea. I'm gonna look at this game mainly from the perspective of someone who plays games on their own. I have friends. This of course raises a lot of issues, and to this I say, it's not an issue, I can just fold these guys up and they fit anywhere. No, to this I say, I haven't had much experience in multiplayer games. It's not my cup of tea. And as Todd Howard himself has said,
You can play this game solo in Quest, but the easiest way is to team up and build together.
You see, the more difficult a game, the more I generally like it, so I'm happy to review the loner experience. I could take some cheap shots and talk about the game not being on Steam or that the beta repeatedly uninstalls itself, but everyone's already done that to death, so I'm not going to. I'm going to talk about the positives.
You see what you've done to me? This thing really smells.
Let's start on a note we can all understand.
D.
Fallout 4 looked mostly f***ing terrible. Or did it? Mostly, yes. In the 400 million hours I spent making animations in it, though, I found I could substantially improve things just by adding my own light sources. Everything looks better under the right light. So what I found was Fallout 4's native lighting system was completely whack, and this made the rest of the graphics in the game look really unpleasant and dated. Fallout 76, though, looks incredible, and from what I can make out, all they really did was fix the lighting, and everything followed suit. Suit! I'd love to make a video montage of all the new graphics to a song, but, you know, it's late and... Wait, do you hear that? Oh, go on then. You see, Bethesda, I can do it too! And this combined with what is one of the best ambient soundtracks I've heard in a Fallout game lends to some really fun and immersive experiences early on, especially when you're wandering around the forests. At times, I honestly felt like I was playing Skyrim, but with guns.
You dare throw my honor into question? Have at you! What am I doing with my life?
I've said this before that a blown up city will look pretty horrible regardless of the caliber of the graphics. So Bethesda decided, have at you! Plants survive the worldwide atomic blast. Sells what sells? Overall, it looks so much better than Fallout 4, even if it is canonically a bit absurd. And makes the random questing and exploring way more enjoyable as there are some incredible sights to see. The biggest controversy surrounding this game is the lack of non-player characters, which is a huge problem because all the NPCs in Fallout 4 were so beloved, so cherished. Oh, how will we cope without good guy with no flaws number 9, preset farmer number 7, and his wife, generic human 2? To me, the lack of people to talk to simply says, we've removed the worst part of Fallout 4. Rejoice, for our savior has come! In Season 4 of The Walking Dead, please don't click off the video, there's no spoilers and I'll be brief, all the characters get separated and explore the wastes on their own. This was my favourite series because many of the characters never actually met anyone. They just stumbled across remnants of what happened before they got there, uncovering hints of dastardly events that would never fully be explained. Just like trying to work out if the inside of a Kit Kat is going to be all chocolate or not. Give me your secrets. All in all, it was like crack to me. You see, what Fallout 76 totally nails is the atmosphere. As discussed, the music and graphics, when they aren't up, are some of the best I've seen in a game. This combined with the lack of NPCs makes the wastes feel as empty as Sid's heart.
Ah, distinctly I remember. It was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon.
The approach to PvP in this game takes this incredible lonely atmosphere, rips it to pieces and uses it as a trail of breadcrumbs along the freedom trail that takes you directly to the railroad.
Who told you how to contact us?
What? You did, you f***ing psychos. There's a literal red carpet outside leading to this exact spot. As a single player game, I honestly find this game quite absorbing. I feel free to explore the secrets of this enormous and varied map all on my own without the distraction of hordes of emotionless zombies and poorly written farmers. PvP could have been the icing on this delicious cake. With only 20-ish people on this enormous map at any one time, bumping into someone is very unlikely. But the slim possibility could be used to add an air of tension and danger to the already freeform exploration. At any moment, another living human could be right behind you, twisted and scarred from his experiences in the wastes. You hear footsteps, the tension it builds, fearful and panicked you turn and are given a thumbs up and they leave. Obviously it's intentional. This game is designed so that other players are basically harmless unless you have a camp somewhere placed on resources they want. Fights only start when fire is returned by another player because Bethesda are not looking to make this a game where people are immediate threats. However, I find this whole decision a little jarring.
Jamming.
The next point I'm going to make once and then we're going to move on from it. In the first Fallout, one of the first groups you meet is a group of raiders, and once you talk to the leader, he gives you two choices. One, you must immediately kill 2 innocent women, or 2, you will be murdered. It's basically the first location, and you can't leave this room without someone dying, yourself included. The idea here is that the Wasteland hasn't changed people as such, it's just a framing device that allows the writers to force the survival aspect of human nature into the spotlight. A nature we know is hidden away, but always lurking in the shadows of our psyche. Pure survival at the cost of anything, with no laws. Murdering people at first sight is the best way to survive.
Human.
Fallout lets us explore a side to humanity we rarely get to see, all through the binoculars of dialogue.
Oh, it's my trusty binoculars of dialogue. I thought I'd lost you.
There are still glimpses of this in Fallout 76, but it's definitely few and far between compared to previous ventures. In this game, you don't feel like Batman. Oh, for fuck! The game doesn't feel like Fallout. As H-Bomber Guy wisely said,
it's the study of nuanced frictions between people. It's like Game of Thrones. The slightest push can start a cascade of chaos. I've never even seen Game of Thrones.
But if I knew this wasn't a Fallout game, then why am I reviewing it, I hear you ask? Well, it's probably the same reason all these other people did.
Ah, it stings! Fuck! Ow!
So if this isn't a Fallout game as such, then what is it? Now, atmosphere alone a good game does not make. Venus has tons of atmosphere, but it's far from the best holiday destination.
It's fine if you don't breathe.
A game is only as good as the content you find when you're playing through it. I found the pepper! And overall, I would describe Fallout 76's content as wildly inconsistent. I tried approaching this game numerous different ways over the course of the beta. The first I tried was seeing where I had to go for the main quest, turning exactly 180 degrees and exploring that direction. Many Fallout fans will probably approach Fallout 76 like this too, and I personally found it was a mixed bag.
Chicken.
The first 3 hours or so of doing this was great due to the unique isolated atmosphere, the background storytelling, like the logs and the bodies you find, and the abundance of new enemies to see. It all gelled brilliantly. I then explored at length 4 major locations. These all stood out on the map as important places to see. The prison, for example, was overrun with super mutants. What could they be guarding? What happened here? What secrets are inside? Nothing. There was nothing here. The prisoners were all wearing intriguing looking slave collars that had almost no explanation. You just put them on. That's their use. I hear slave collars are all the rage this year, Dorothy. Oh, I hope it doesn't blow my head off. It was the same with Point Pleasant. The game doesn't seem to have many secrets worth finding in these locations. They seem to be only worth visiting when you already have quests relevant to them. Vault-Tec University stands out for having a brilliantly written experiment being performed on the dwellers that you uncover on a terminal. You see, the lack of NPCs is not a problem here. Some of the best moments in New Vegas were exploring empty buildings and vaults, slowly uncovering all the awful things that happened before you got there. But in Fallout 76, the entire experiment was on this one terminal, so the subtlety and tension you would expect from uncovering a mystery piece by piece was totally absent.
Who could have done this? Oh, it was the butler.
This new, much less complex style of storytelling has helped lead to... This game got people up in arms.
I'm phasing these jokes out, I swear.
The anger, I believe, mostly stems from the fact that people knew Bethesda used resources on making Fallout 76 an online game that could have instead been spent on its writing and world building. But hold your horses there, Charlie. I once reviewed Elite Dangerous, which is the video game equivalent of building a particle accelerator out of a pile of shoes. But where does the neutron go? You see, Elite Dangerous is a great game with average reviews. It's more complicated than piloting the Hubble Space Telescope, but that's because it's made for a certain niche of people who are totally f***ing insane.
One of these must open the f***ing doors!
The exploration side of Fallout 76 may be a very stripped down experience.
Yes, take it off.
But I think the game is very well suited for people who want to explore a Fallout-themed universe online with friends or family. It's extremely easy to pick up and play, and the light touches of narrative mean people can build bases, sightsee, level up and craft new weapons without the story bashing them in the face and getting in the way.
So if that sounds like your cup of tea, here you go. If not, cleanse it.
But times 2. What is mostly disappointing is adding more high-quality storytelling in the background would have still been possible while keeping the casual experience for others. But both of those things together just aren't here. And $60 for me seems outrageously high for this kind of experience. Saying that, if you do want to play this as an online game, it's only a one-off payment. I mean, have you seen how much World of Warcraft costs?
I was going to pay off the family home, but then I thought to myself, you can't put a price on happiness, now they live on the street.
Stripping back Fallout's exploratory side in this way was always going to be a risk, but Bethesda only did this to one of the biggest gaming franchises on the planet. This is like Marvel putting out a rom-com. F Like Hershey's putting out dog food, like my cat putting out his own album.
Despacito, quiero respirar tu cuello despacito.
Sid, that was beautiful.
Khajiit is aware of this.
Why f***ing risk it? You got balls, Bethesda, but I haven't a f***ing clue what you're thinking. There's nothing inside this one. It's almost as if Bethesda are selling out their franchise.
I mean, it's just like taking quotes from a brand and sticking them on a t-shirt. Oh, fuck. Check the link in the description.
The storyline early on is another mixed bag.
Where's the chicken?
On the one hand, a big part of it is the exact same thing as Fallout 3 and 4. You just follow a series of markers on the map until you find someone, except instead of your dad or son, it's the Overseer who we've never met or heard of before, so you care even less.
I can't believe it, Sean. I finally found you. Holy f***, is that an antique globe?
You see, on the other hand, we have a new race of enemies attacking a new faction of survivors in a new location unlike anything we've ever seen in a previous Fallout game. Granted, it's all a bit heavy-handed, with everyone crying into holotapes for hours on end about how bad everything's gotten.
Children were born into this violent world.
I've run out of Milo cakes and in 2 days I'll eat the dog food.
Oh, get a grip, woman. Oh. But I found it much more original and compelling than, you love your son, don't you? Well, go on, get him. So there you go. The game seems best suited for playing with friends online. I found random exploring far too shallow for me. Or do I? Look, all the positives and negatives I said about this game are definitely true. But against all that, I actually think this game is pretty okay. It's all down to the atmosphere I mentioned. I feel so alone in this game, I actually keep coming back to it to chill out and explore. There may not be much in each area, but I really enjoy its slow and dreamy pace. But one day, when the moon is in the 7th house, one day when it stops deleting my fucking progress, I'd definitely say this is an okay game with a varied enough map to enjoy pottering around in. And hey, I'm still playing it. Okay, I've been droning on for way too long, so here's a quick-fire round. Just like in Fallout 4 VR, the Pip-Boy does not pause the game when you bring it up, since it's online, and is my favourite new addition to the game. In the past, if your handgun ran out of ammo, you just freeze time, change weapons, and suddenly come out on top. In Fallout 76, if you run low on health, run out of ammo, or your weapon breaks, you have to run for cover to recuperate or swap weapons. It adds strategy and risk to the gameplay and really spiced up many of the generic run-and-gun fights I had and cut out hours of me pausing the game to decide what weapon to use next.
Sword, handgun. Sword, handgun. Sword, handgun.
Even with all its flaws, I consider Fallout 3 a triumph. Each time I explored an area in that game, my character grew or changed in some kind of notable way. I felt like I was making constant progress, helping people and improving the wasteland as I went. Oh, it'll be over soon. Perk cards for me add far too much variety to my character far too quickly. At level 10, I had well over 20 perks to pick up and swap around. It made Miss Bargy, what? Feel far too inconsistent, and each advancement felt less and less significant as I got more and more cards. Once again though, this is just me. If you are experiencing this game as it seems best suited, as a way to play more casually online with friends.
Okay guys, are we ready to go? Stop interrupting!
The constant variety actually matches the more simplistic run and gun gameplay of a group adventure, offering more to the casual gamer. VATS is the same as you're used to from previous games, but doesn't slow time anymore since, again, the game is online. So it's basically just an auto-aim button. It's clunky at first, but I got the hang of it eventually. I don't really think it adds or takes anything from the game either way, so I don't have much to say.
I've got you now.
Are you talking to me? I don't see anybody else around here.
I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Conclusion. Overall, the game seemed a bit more difficult than Fallout 4 in general, mainly I imagine because I was travelling alone. Fallout 4 was about as challenging as beating a cat at Connect 4.
I beat you, Sid.
This game angers Khajiit.
And I hear there's base building. 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 Base building. Base building. Base building. I hear there's base building. Base building. I am not engaging in base building to rebuild this place. I got shit to do.
Do you have any threes?
The Legion will be here any minute anyway to crucify the lot of you. Don't mind me, I'm just speeding things along. Giving you a comparatively merciful death and getting in the Legion's good books before I go mad with power, quit the game, and inevitably rename myself to Kaiser.
Iowa, true to me.
The game's presentation is beautiful. Actually, that all depends if the frame rate issues have been fixed since the beta. I totally forgot to mention all that. I'm updating on screen now to say if it has. There we go. So is the game playable?
And there we go. Thank you everyone for watching. And if you enjoy this series and want to help me keep making it, please consider supporting the channel by buying one of my merch boxes. Or just supporting me on Patreon at any tier. All the links are in the description.